Hogwarts, both scientific and magical. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Easter Holiday. Kyle welcomed the Easter holiday in a happy mood. Unlike the previous choice of staying in the castle, Kyle chose to return to the Muggle world this Easter. The design of the magic circle has been preliminarily completed, and several theoretical investigations have been done. At least with Kyle's current knowledge reserve, no optimization or improvement can be made. The more obvious useless magic words and the conflicting and interfering parts have been found and modified by Kyle. The remaining parts, that are not easy to detect, cannot be solved by theoretical investigation. Problems can only be continuously discovered during the trial operation, and at the same time, they can be corrected in combination with the actual operation situation. This time Kyle returned to the Muggle world, just to find a good enough mechanical company to make a magic circle template for himself. To be honest, Kyle is still a little nervous about whether the current technology can meet the requirements. Unlike the 21st century, both computers and CNC machine tools were much more advanced than now. Cat designed the drawings, imported them into the machine tools, fed them, and operated the processing. It was that simple. But what about in 1991? Computer CPUs generally still use Intel 386. Only high-end talents are able to operate computers skillfully and use these professional software. If there is any professional software in this area, perhaps young readers have no idea about this 386 CPU. Let's put it this way. After 386, there are 486, 586, Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Pentium 4, core, and then in 2011, the familiar i3, i5, and i7 were launched. The huge generation gap really makes Kyle unable to trust the computers of this era. Is it possible to use computers to make drawings and then import them into machine tools? Or in other words, this era can definitely meet Kyle's requirements, but who can achieve it, and how to achieve it? Kyle doesn't know. There are definitely high precision machine tools now, but are they high precision products? Are the requirements for operators high? Is it easy to find such resources? Kyle doesn't know. In just 1 week, and it's still during the holidays, maybe he can't even find a reliable company to make initial contact. Although he was not optimistic about this trip, Kyle got up early on the day off, packed up, walked to the station, and waited for the arrival of the Hogwarts Express. Well, I have to complain here. It's called an express train, but Kyle really doesn't know how fast it is. It takes a whole day to get from London to Hogwarts. Maybe if Kyle's portable energy storage room is successfully developed, it can be installed on the Hogwarts Express. I believe the little wizards will not refuse. Kyle feels that he is really business minded and can always find business opportunities. Although the Phoenix industry chain is not easy to achieve, it seems not difficult to make money from the school. Just sitting in the car, reading books and chatting with classmates, we soon arrived at King's Cross Station. Looking at the little wizards happily running to their parents, it would be a lie to say that Kyle is not sad. But after all, it has been so many years, and the sadness brought by the momentary touch of the scene is only a flash. After slowly walking out of platform 9 3/4, Kyle found a taxi at random and got in. Philadelphia Hotel, thank you. Kyle, who had no idea about London in this era, only knew this hotel because it was not far from the orphanage where his predecessor grew up. After reporting the name of the hotel, Kyle quietly looked at the scenery outside the window. London might be really different for Kyle. In his previous life, Kyle lost to the disease in London and saw King's Cross Station at the last moment. When he woke up again, he had become a first-year student at Hogwarts. In the summer vacation after the end of the 3rd grade, Kyle returned to the station and wandered there for a long time. But the station is just an ordinary station. Kyle also read all the information related to the station in the library day and night, but all the information showed that there was nothing different there. There have never been any supernatural legends or urban legends here. Everything tells Kyle that everything at the station is normal. But if he can't figure out the secret of crossing, Kyle will always feel uneasy. Is this a dream? Or is it a fantasy generated by his brain that is about to stop working? In fact, this feeling of uneasiness has been with Kyle for several years. The healthy body that was lost and regained, the wonderful and mysterious magic world, and all kinds of magical items and creatures. All of this scared Kyle, afraid that this was a deception of his brain. Even if it was not a fantasy of the brain, there must be reasons that he didn't know about the crossing. Kyle didn't believe that this would be an accident similar to the time-space wormhole crossing, because accidents would not give him an extra golden finger. The endless pursuit of magic in recent years is also due to this sense of uneasiness. Whether it is a fantasy or there is really an arrangement, it is always good to strengthen oneself. If it is a fantasy, then he has lived up to this wonderful dream. If there is a reason, then it takes more powerful strength to deal with this invisible unknown. Along the way, Kyle looked out the window quietly, thinking about these things over and over in his mind, and gradually approached his target hotel. At the same time, a conversation related to him was happening in a place he didn't know. Is that boy your classmate? Yes. What's wrong, Dad? Why didn't his parents pick up that boy? He looked very sad. Although Kyle felt that he didn't show it, the momentary sadness on his body was still noticed by this perceptive parent. Senior Kyle is a 4th grade student. I heard that he is an orphan, but his grades are very good. He is the first in the grade and the prefect of his grade. The little witch looked a little awkward, but still told the truth. Haha, Hermione, I've never seen you praise a classmate like this, but I believe my little Hermione is the best, no matter where she is of course. Dad, I will definitely be the first in this year's final exam. Those classmates are so childish, and don't take the exam seriously. There are less than 10 weeks until the end of the semester, and they haven't started reviewing yet. I can't imagine it. Okay, Hermione, you can't expect everyone to like studying like you. When Dad was a child, he also started reviewing before the exams started, and now he's doing well. Dad, you're just talking nonsense. If you don't like studying, how can you get into medical school? I don't believe it. If the little witch's current appearance was seen by her classmates, they would definitely be shocked. She was seen happily holding her mother's arm, saying something to her father with a coquettish look on her face, and giggling from time to time. Hermione, who let down her guard around her parents, was completely different from Hermione, who was competitive and wore a strong mask at school. Hermione's family and Kyle actually walked out of the platform at about the same time, but the two sides did not have any intersection. Kyle went left and walked to the taxi waiting area, while Hermione's family went right and walked to the parking lot. However, fate is so wonderful. After a lot of twists and turns, the two sides unexpectedly met each other. Thanks to Weeking, number 505, Bezer for the recommendation votes, and the new book, whether it is recommendation or collection, it is very important. Thank you for your support. Chapter 27 Easter Holiday. The taxi stopped at the entrance of a small alley. Here we are, sir. The hotel you are going to is just across this alley. This is the shortest way. If we drive you to the hotel entrance, we have to go a long way around, and there is a lot of traffic ahead. The driver said slickly, almost adding a SKR at the end. It was just a matter of walking a few more steps, so Kyle got out of the car with his luggage without caring. Without waiting for Kyle to stand firm, the driver stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. It seems that he is in a hurry to take on the next customer to support his family. The alley pointed out by the driver is dark and narrow, with some garbage thrown on the ground in a mess. There are all kinds of messy paintings on the wall, skulls, red crosses, and the overall pattern is very negative. In the memory of my previous life, the area around the orphanage didn't seem so shabby. Has the area become more dilapidated in the past few years since I came back? While thinking, I walked quickly to the other side of the alley. The environment in the alley is very poor, dirty and messy, but it is obvious that some people don't care. After walking past a huge trash can blocking the middle of the alley, Kyle found that there were actually several young men in their teens sitting here drinking and chatting. Several people shared a bottle of wine, found a place to sit on the ground casually, staggering here and there, and chatted about something with laughter. Seeing Kyle coming over, Several people first looked at Kyle, then looked at each other, and stopped talking to each other. The atmosphere is a bit subtle, Kyle thought. It seems that the driver is in a hurry to leave, not to make money to support his family. After counting, there were a total of 6 young men, some black and some white, all with tattoos, blocking Kyle's way one after another. "Gentlemen, can you make way?" Kyle was not afraid. Minor wizards cannot perform magic outside of school, referring to non-emergency situations. In the case of endangering their own safety, young wizards are allowed to use magic to protect themselves. And not being able to use magic does not mean that you cannot use potions. But after all, less trouble is worse than more trouble. Although he was not nervous, Kyle also reached out for the potion. I still didn't think carefully enough, and didn't anticipate this kind of emergency. If I had known this, I would have found some failed potions made by Gryffindor. Kyle was still a little envious when he thought of the power of those failed potions. No matter what Kyle was thinking, the guys in front of him thought it was too funny. "Are you an idiot, kid? Do you think we stopped you just to make way for you? This kid looks good, but his brain is not working well." The guys in front of Kyle obviously enjoyed the fun of bullying others. While laughing, they shamelessly teased Kyle. There was even a guy who had reached out to Kyle's box. After all, it was a few scumbags who were looking for death. Kyle didn't want to waste any more time. Just when he was about to take out the potion, a middle-aged white man ran over. "You little bastards, stop it." The man was a little fat, and his decent suit matched his clean appearance. Obviously, he was a guy with good living conditions. "You damn hooligans, you even bully students. I've called the police. If you don't want to get into trouble, you'd better leave here." This development was beyond Kyle's expectations. He didn't expect to encounter the legendary hero. But after all, it's better to have less trouble than more. Whether it's using magic or potions to fight back, you have to contact the Ministry of Magic's Minor Management Department to deal with the aftermath and submit a statement of the situation. It's quite troublesome. After several hooligans walked out of the alley cursing, the middle-aged man turned to Kyle. "These hooligans know how to cause trouble all day long. You are a student, you'd better stay away from them, and don't come to such a remote place by yourself." As he said, he stretched out his hand to Kyle. Wendell Granger, Hermione's father, "I saw you at the station just now." Kyle suddenly realized that it was no wonder that the man was a little familiar. "Kyle Shafiq. Thank you for your help, sir." "You're welcome. We just parked the car in front of the restaurant across the street and saw you being troubled by these hooligans. Are you and Hermione from the same college?" "I know there are 4 schools in Hogwarts, and Hermione is in Gryffindor. She told us a lot of interesting things about the school." Before Mr. Granger finished speaking, the little witch came running over. "Dad, you are too impulsive. You should have informed us. If I hadn't noticed something was wrong and chased after you, I wouldn't have known you had entered the alley." Okay, Hermione, I'm safe, aren't I? I was just in a hurry just now, and don't underestimate your dad. I used to practice boxing." Faced with Hermione's questioning, Mr. Granger seemed a little flustered, but still emphasized his strength. It seems that every father is like this. Giving her father a blank look, Hermione stopped dwelling on it and said to Kyle, "Hello, Senior Kyle." "Hello, Miss Hermione," Kyle said to the little witch, and then he looked at Mr. Granger. "I didn't expect to see you here. Do you live nearby?" "Yes, we live not far from here. We stopped here because there is a nice restaurant here. Do you want to try it together?" Granger replied to Kyle in a happy tone and unexpectedly invited Kyle to dinner. "Thank you for your invitation, sir, but I have to rush to the hotel, so I won't disturb your family from dining together. Thank you again for your help." The 3 of them walked out of the alley while talking and stopped at the entrance of the alley. Mr. Granger obviously heard Kyle's refusal, but he didn't take it to heart. Instead, he asked, "Hotel? You want to stay in a hotel during the holidays?" "Okay, young man, don't worry about the hotel. I know a good hotel to recommend to you. The price is not expensive and the service is very good. Now it's dinner time. Of course, we can't miss dinner. It's just in time for you to tell us some interesting things about the magic world. Hermione's mother and I are very interested in these things." I didn't expect that there would be a little witch in our family. Granger's tone was very cheerful, and he was still teasing Hermione, but Kyle heard his underlying meaning. After all, the magic world and the muggle world are almost two worlds. The little witch was alone in the unfamiliar magic world, which obviously made her parents very worried. Not understanding the situation and being unable to provide her with any help obviously made Mr. Granger very uneasy, and he didn't want to miss any opportunity to understand the magic world and build connections for the little girl. Obviously, the smart Hermione also heard what her father meant. She looked at Kyle with a little embarrassment, with a hint of pleading and uneasiness in her eyes. If I had a father, would he care about me like Mr. Granger? This inexplicable thought once again broke into Kyle's mind. I don't know why, but the holiday has come, and Kaya seems to have become fragile. Unable to refuse such a father's invitation, Kyle walked into the restaurant with Granger and his daughter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Accident. Mrs. Granger also warmly welcomed Kyle's arrival. Ma'am, good afternoon. I'm sorry to disturb you and your family's meal. We are very happy to have Hermione's classmates as guests. Mrs. Granger smiled, looked at her daughter and continued. After all, Hermione is too strong-willed. It is difficult for her to meet suitable friends. In the 6 years of elementary school, she has never brought her classmates home once. Mrs. Granger teased her daughter like this, but the worry in her words was obvious. Mom, who said I don't have good friends? Didn't I tell you about Harry and Ron? We have a very good relationship. I also help them make a review plan. We go to class together every day. They also like to find me if they have any questions. Obviously dissatisfied with her mother's evaluation of herself, Hermione once again emphasized to her mother that she is very popular in school. Of course, Mrs. Granger, Hermione is really good in school. She is better than all the wizards of the same grade in study. She also has her own friends, and the professors like her very much. Senior Kyle, I'm not as good as you say. I'm still far behind you. I heard that you have been the top student in your grade since freshman year, and your classmates also believe in you. I can't do that yet. Hermione was a little depressed when she said this. She obviously thought of her own situation. The girls didn't like her, and her only friends were Harry and Ron. Neville Longbottom, another pureblood from Gryffindor, seemed to have a good relationship with her. Apart from that, she had not been seen interacting with other little wizards. But it was obvious that the little witch didn't want her parents to know about these things, and she kept talking about the interesting things in Hogwarts. She described the movable stairs, the free-moving portraits, and even the mischievous Peeves. It seemed that the little witch had some interesting stories with Peeves. Kyle didn't interrupt too much, and most of the time he was just echoing Hermione's description. It wasn't that Kyle lied. If we exclude the three-headed dog, the purebloods who discriminated against muggle wizards, the giant spiders in the Forbidden Forest, the hippogriffs, the trolls, the legendary werewolves, etc., Hogwarts is still quite safe and loving. However, Kyle's positive evaluation of the little witch was not to help Hermione out, but from the heart. Kyle admired Hermione's efforts and thirst for knowledge. As they chatted, the topic turned to Kyle and the toy puppet he launched last semester. Senior, your ideas are really wild and your designs are really outstanding. I actually studied your toy puppet last semester, but the knowledge involved is so complicated that I can only understand the general idea, which is really discouraging. At this point, Hermione's voice had completely fallen. It seemed that the little witch was very frustrated that she had not been able to study the work designed by a senior who was the first in the 4th grade and had a very deep knowledge accumulation and spent most of his energy. Hearing this, Kyle actually found it a little funny. He had accumulated knowledge for 4 years with the help of the golden finger, so how could it be possible that the little witch could catch up with it in more than half a year after entering school? However, Hermione's competitive spirit and thirst for knowledge once again refreshed Kyle's view of him. At this time, a special idea popped up. It seems that the little witch is a very qualified experimental assistant, and her pursuit of knowledge will definitely provide a lot of help to Kyle. However, thinking about the relationship between the little witch and Harry, there will definitely be trouble. At that time, I don't know whether it will speed up my research and development progress or hinder myself. Kyle didn't want to be inexplicably dragged into the troubles of the protagonist of the story one day. After thinking about it, this idea had to be abandoned. Senior Kyle, do you have any review plans for the holidays? After all, there are less than 10 weeks left before the final exam. At this point, Hermione looked at Kyle with some expectation, as if she was very much looking forward to sharing the study method of Kyle, who had been number 1 in 4 years. I'm sorry, Hermione, I have a lot of personal matters scheduled for this holiday, and I didn't make a review plan. And you are a little too anxious. After all, there are still 10 weeks before the exam. Oh, Senior Kyle, how can you say that? 10 weeks will pass quickly. Obviously the little witch was very dissatisfied with Kyle's answer, and gave Kyle an angry look. I told you, Hermione, how could someone start reviewing 10 weeks in advance? Mr. Granger looked like he had found a confidant, laughing loudly, and seemed extremely happy. The little witch's face looked even worse when she heard this. Seeing this, Mr. Granger stopped laughing and quickly changed the subject. Kyle, do you have something to solve? Is the vacation time enough? If you need anything, please tell me and see if I can help. The topic change was a little abrupt, and it seemed that Mr. Granger became flustered when facing his daughter's unhappiness. However, Kyle's heart moved when he heard it, and Mr. Granger's words hit the mark of Kyle's worries. A week of vacation is too short. Kyle, who has no connections in the Muggle world and has no understanding of this era, finds it difficult to find a suitable partner in such a short time. Mr. Granger's help may save Kyle more time. After just a little hesitation, Kyle gladly accepted Granger's kindness. Thank you for your kindness. Maybe I really need to hear your opinion. I plan to find a company in the Muggle world that can make metal molds according to my ideas, but I don't know anything about this aspect at the moment. I'm planning to buy a few newspapers to see if there are any related companies advertising. I don't know if you know anything about this industry. Can you recommend a few companies with a good reputation? Kyle's words made the little witch open her eyes wide. In Hermione's understanding, dealing with some private matters, maybe emotional matters, maybe going back to the orphanage to deal with some things, she never expected that it would involve such professional things. What kind of business is Senior Kyle going to do again? He looks so powerful. Unexpectedly, a remark unexpectedly received the admiration of the little witch, but Kyle didn't take it to heart, but quietly waited for Mr. Granger's reply. My wife and I are both dentists, and don't know much about this aspect. Hearing this, Kyle was a little disappointed, but then he heard Mr. Granger say, but I have a good friend who runs this business. I can take you to visit him at his home. Hearing this, Kyle can be said to be overjoyed. An unexpected encounter can actually help him solve the problem at hand. Even if Mr. Granger's friend's company cannot meet Kyle's requirements, people in the same industry can always recommend suitable partners for cooperation. Dad, which friend of yours is it? Mr. Kyle, can I go with you to listen? The little witch was very interested when she heard this and asked to sit in on the class. Of course, but I'll have to trouble Mr. Granger to help make the contact. Haha, no need to bother, no need to contact separately. Hermione, it's your Uncle Weaver, Ludo Weaver. We had an appointment to watch the game at his house today. Kyle, come with us later. Hearing this, Kyle's face turned strange. Thanks to Malulu for the recommendation, and thanks to all the friends who have collected it. New books are not easy, so collect them and cherish them. In addition, thanks to the editor-in-chief Woodcrossing for his GUIDANCE. Chapter 29 Accident. The Granger family took Kyle to visit their friends. How could it be like a father-in-law visiting his son-in-law? However, Mr. Granger's enthusiasm made it difficult for Kyle to refuse, and it could really help Kyle a lot. If he could not confirm the partner during the Easter holiday, Kyle's plan might have to be postponed to the summer vacation. Because after school starts, Kyle will not be able to find a chance to return to the Muggle world. After deciding to visit Ludo Weaver together, the four of them sped up their meal, and Mr. Granger also introduced Mr. Weaver to Kyle. Ludo Weaver and Mr. Granger were classmates, both of whom graduated from medical school. However, unlike Mr. Granger, who entered the hospital for internship step by step, then was promoted to attending physician, and finally opened his own dental clinic, he did not continue to practice medicine after graduation, but entered the field of medical machinery and established a company. In the end, he worked hard all the way and developed from an unknown small company to a well-known medical equipment agent and manufacturer in London. After coming out of the restaurant, Mr. Granger drove and said, "Speaking of Weaver's house, there are still some twists and turns. He lives in number 13 Grimald Place. In fact, your Uncle Weaver doesn't like this number. When he bought the house, he wanted to change the house number to number 12 because number 12 was vacant. But the community told him that there was an interesting rumor here. It is said that number 12 Grimald Place existed at the beginning of construction, but no one could see the house. At that time, there were only number 11 and number 13 on the map. This anecdote later became a local tradition. Over the past few hundred years, the house has changed hands several times, and the community has also experienced demolition and reconstruction, but there have always been only number 11 and number 13. In the end, because the whole community opposed Weaver's plan, he could only keep number 13 and let number 12 Grimald Place continue to be vacant. Chatting all the way, Kyle and the others soon arrived at their destination. Grimald Place is not far from King's Cross Station. If you get off the bus and come directly, it may only take 20 minutes. The square was very beautifully built. In the middle was a fountain with exquisite reliefs. A large number of pigeons gathered around it. The evening sun shone obliquely on the fountain, scattering a not very conspicuous rainbow. But Kyle had no intention of paying attention to these. Among the many houses that were obviously well maintained, a dilapidated and gloomy old house stood abruptly. The building was 5 stories high, and there were many terrible statues on the walls. As far as Kyle knew, all of them were extremely dark and dangerous magical creatures. Each room had a terrace. The black paint on the iron fence of the terrace had been weathered and was slightly mottled. All the rooms were dark, and the peeling wallskin and spider webs hanging in the corners showed that the house had been abandoned for a long time. The outer periphery was a circle of thorny flower-shaped guardrails. The spikes on the guardrails made the whole house look more dangerous and terrifying. In the middle was a black painted gate covered with scratches. Next to the door was a blurred number plate with red characters on a white background. Perhaps it was the writer's mistake. Too much paint flowed down from the font, leaving a series of red marks. From a distance, it looked like it was written with wet blood. The house number was exactly number 12 Grimald Place, which had never been seen by anyone for hundreds of years, but was constantly talked about as a joke. The pedestrians around turned a blind eye to this strange house, but the legendary number 12 Grimald Place, which had disappeared, and the many reliefs of magical creatures on the wall, told of the extraordinary nature of this house. Kyle carefully took out his wand and held it in his hand, staring at the house nervously, and dodged in front of the Grangers and Hermione. His action obviously attracted the attention of the 3 people. Seeing him take out his wand, the little witch was also a little uneasy. She also took out her wand and looked at Kyle with a little confusion. "Senior, what did you find?" The little witch's confusion made Kyle reflect on whether he was too nervous. Could it be that this house was specially built in recent years according to rumors? "Hermione, do you know about this house?" Kyle pointed the direction of the house with his wand and looked at Hermione. "I don't know much about you, senior. Number 13 Grimald Place. Isn't this Uncle Weaver's house?" As a fellow wizard, Hermione couldn't see it. Was this a trap set by some pure-blood noble, unsatisfied with what they did in school? But the experience during the 3rd-year holiday should have made them realize that they are not easy to mess with. Pure-blood nobles are always few in number. Are they not afraid of being uprooted by themselves? The actions of several people have aroused the curiosity of passers-by, especially Kyle and Hermione, who both held a small wooden stick, making the surrounding residents think that they were going to perform some kind of show. "Hey, Wendell, since you are here, why don't you come in? The game is about to start at this time." A warm and cheerful voice came over. It was Weaver, who saw Granger and his group in the house, so he came out to greet them. Kyle instinctively wanted to get away from here immediately. Without any information, Kyle didn't want to put himself in danger. But if this was a trap for Kyle, the person behind the scenes must have seen the Grangers who came with him. The kindness of the couple just now made Kyle unable to withdraw, but he couldn't think of any excuse to stop Mr. Granger from attending the party. Originally, Hermione was afraid that getting too close to the savior would bring trouble to herself, but she didn't expect that she would bring danger to the Grangers first. Helpless, Kyle had to secretly tighten his wand and followed Mr. Granger forward. His muscles were tense throughout the whole process, ready to deal with emergencies at any time. Although the little witch didn't know what happened, she didn't put away her wand, and the tension on her face was visible to the naked eye. This improved Kyle's evaluation of her. She was very vigilant. Although she was nervous when encountering things, she didn't panic. "Senior Kyle, what happened?" Hermione beside him asked Kyle softly. "Number 12 Grimmauld Place, it's right here. Can't you see it?" Kyle confirmed with her again. Hearing this, Hermione opened her eyes wide, but quickly replied, "No, I can't see anything. Be careful first. Pay attention to abnormal things around you, and deal with them as they come." After saying this briefly, Kyle stopped talking, and looked around vigilantly. "Old friend, you're late. Who is this guy? Can't you introduce him to me?" "Haha, Ludo, this is Hermione's classmate, Kyle Shafiq. I just happened to have something to ask you, so I brought him here. I hope you don't mind." "How could it be? There are more people, so it's more lively. I also have a new guy here, but he hasn't arrived yet. I'll introduce him to you when he arrives." While talking and laughing, several people walked into the house. Hermione also did not propose to leave early. Obviously, she didn't want to let the unknown danger threaten the Grangers, but planned to wait and see what happened here, and try to resolve it in advance. There were about 5 or 6 people sitting in the room. They seemed to be residents from the surrounding area, gathered at Weaver's house to watch the game. Mr. Granger seemed to be familiar with them, and greeted everyone with a smile. Just when everyone was about to sit down, there was a knock on the door. Kyle and Hermione looked at each other, and tightened their wands again quietly, but Weaver was completely unaware and answered loudly, going to open the door. The closer Weaver got to the door, the more alert Kyle became. The moment he opened the door, this sense of vigilance reached its peak. Mr. Weaver seemed very happy after opening the door. He welcomed the person outside, and introduced him loudly. "Friends, this is our new guy, who lives at number 11 Grimmauld Place. He is a gentleman from the mysterious East Kingway." The visitor made a gesture of thanks to Weaver, and said in a voice with a hint of helplessness, "Thank you Mr. Weaver for your warm invitation, but I have to correct it. According to the Eastern way of calling, I still hope that everyone will call me Wendy King. Of course, you can also call me Wendy." Kyle also saw the appearance of the person outside the door clearly at this time. With a delicate face, sparkling eyes and a bright smile, he is someone who can be remembered at first sight, and can easily win the favor of others with his appearance. In the 1990s, he could afford a villa in London. It seems that Mr. Weaking is also a guy who can make a living with his face, but he chooses to make money with his talent. The episode passed quickly, and Kyle still did not dare to let his guard down. Suddenly, he felt something strange in his pocket, as if there was something extra. Using the excuse of going to the bathroom, Kyle avoided everyone, took out the dragon leather gloves, and put them on his hands. He carefully took it out, and found that it was a note with gorgeous cursive writing on it. "Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, number 12 Grimmauld Place is waiting for your arrival. Born noble, always pure black, surprised, unexpected. A proud face with his hands on his hips." Chapter 30. 505 Islington. After returning to the living room, Kyle signaled Hermione to find a reason to leave, and then sat back in his seat. Although he had not completely let down his guard, Kyle relaxed a little. Known dangers are always better than the prying eyes of unknown enemies. Black. Of course, Kyle knew this family. A well-known dark wizard family in the wizarding world, a die-hard fan of Voldemort, and a crazy supporter of the pure blood theory. The Blacks were once the most powerful, oldest, and richest pure-blood wizard family in Britain, one of the 28 sacred families. Many British wizard families have close or distant blood relations with them. Like the Malfoy and Lestrange families, the Black family is synonymous with status and wealth. The Blacks used to be arrogant, powerful, mean, and despised half-bloods and muggles, but the Black family's reputation was not one-sidedly negative, because Black was also persistent, loyal, and had firm beliefs. It would be a very happy thing to be a friend of Black, because Black could always bring enough sense of security to the friends they recognized, even if they were more picky about choosing friends. But such a noble family, admired by everyone in the magic world, collapsed in the last era. In terms of bloodline, due to the disappearance of Regulus Black and the foreseeable death of Sirius Black in Azkaban, and the two of them left no offspring, the paternal line of the Black family has died. In terms of reputation, Sirius Black, the eldest son of the Black family, is the only candidate for the next patriarch. During school, he betrayed his family tradition, entered Gryffindor College, and became a close friend of Potter's father. During the war, he was active in the forefront of the resistance against Voldemort, and was eventually expelled from the family. If it had developed to this point, everyone would only tease that the Black family had another traitor, but Black's reputation would not fall at all, because he was worthy of Black's strength, as well as Black's paranoia and loyalty. But who would have thought that Sirius would betray Dumbledore's side at the most stalemate of the war, and told Voldemort where the Potters were hiding. In the end, the Potters died, leaving only Harry, and Voldemort disappeared, ending the war dramatically. Sirius, who jumped back and forth between darkness and light, was eventually spurned by both sides. The ever-loyal Black had a fickle villain. Regulus Black, the youngest son of the Black family, was the new heir of the Black family after Sirius left. A purist and an admirer of Voldemort, he joined the Death Eaters at the age of 16, and was proud of it. But after the war began, the brutal battle frightened Regulus Black, and he became a deserter on the battlefield. Since then, no one in the magic world has seen him again. There are rumors that he was punished by Voldemort himself, and there are also rumors that he was killed by dark wizards during his escape. In short, it seems that there is no good ending. So far, the paternal bloodline of the Black family has been cut off, the reputation has collapsed, and the influence is gone. In just 20 years, Black, who was born noble and pure forever, fell from being high and mighty to being cut off from his paternal line, with no more prestige, and only a dilapidated old house left, which was a pity. After going through the news of the Black family in his mind, Kyle was a little confused. Who else could pass on information to him in the name of Black? Bellatrix Black Lestrange? The most loyal Death Eater under Voldemort. Crazy, cruel, cunning, evil, a purist Black wizard, she has created countless terrorist attacks. Among those killed by her are non-pure blood wizards, members of the Order of the Phoenix, and even the most ordinary muggles, with countless murders. Her loyalty to Voldemort and her persistence in her bloodline have not changed him at all, even in the deepest part of Azkaban. This is an extremely evil Black wizard, but also a typical Black, who has never fallen from the prestige of the Black family, and it is understandable that she uses the banner of Black. However, the Dementors of Azkaban should not allow her to come out and pass a note to them, unless there is a large-scale prison break. Then is it Andromeda Blacktongues? This is also a pure Black. She resolutely broke with her family for love, married a Muggle wizard, and was expelled from the family. She lived in poverty all her life, but never used the name of Black to seek benefits for herself. Moreover, she broke with her family very thoroughly, and there was no trace of nostalgia for Black. So Andromeda can basically be ruled out. The most likely one is the wife of the current Malfoy patriarch, Draco Malfoy's mother, Narcissa Black Malfoy. This is also a very capable woman. After the war, Lucius Malfoy was imprisoned. It was all thanks to Narcissa Malfoy's arrangement and the tacit understanding between the couple that the old Malfoy successfully escaped the trial of the Ministry of Magic. So after so many years, what caused Mrs. Malfoy to take up the banner of Black again? What does she want to do, and what does she want to get? On the way out, Kyle's brain was spinning at high speed, thinking of all kinds of possibilities, but he couldn't think of any reasonable explanation. Or did the disappeared Regulus Black reappear? In fact, this is not impossible. After all the information about his death is rumors, and no one has seen his body. It is even possible that Regulus Black has been sheltered under the wings of Black from beginning to end. Is it that the situation is stable now, and he is ready to reappear and let the Black family return to the upper class? Regulus's identity as the heir of the Black family is enough to do this, and his defection during the war can be regarded as a betrayal of Voldemort, and he is abandoning the dark and joining the light. As long as the upper and lower arrangements are in place, the Ministry of Magic will not pursue him. In this way, the Black family can reappear legitimately. But if you think in this way, why did Regulus contact Kyle before he officially went on the road? A little wizard from the Muggle world, whose parents are unknown, and use such a strange way to notify him? There are too few effective clues, resulting in Kyle's slight headache, but he didn't come up with a more reliable idea until the car slowly stopped at 505 Islington, Hermione's home. That's right, Kyle followed Hermione back to her home. After all, the matter has not been resolved yet, and Hermione, a little wizard, cannot deal with the possible dangers. This decision is easy to make, but the matter is not easy to handle. If this matter is known by his classmates at Hogwarts, Kyle feels that he will be embarrassed to death. Although the Grangers hope to maintain a friendly relationship with Kyle and the hope that he can take care of Hermione at Hogwarts, the invitation to Kyle when leaving the Weaver family is really just a polite remark. Just now at the Weaver family, Hermione, who received Kyle's signal, said that she was unwell and forced her parents and Mr. Weaver to say goodbye and left number 13 Grimmauld Place. So much so that after leaving, Mr. Granger was still apologizing to Weaver for not having time to communicate with him about Kyle because he was too hasty, and said politely, "Kyle, since you don't have a place to stay in London, why don't you stay at my house first? You can sleep in the guest room, so it will be convenient for us to contact each other." Okay. Although he was full of embarrassment, Kyle didn't show it on his face. The Grangers looked at each other, obviously not expecting Kyle to agree without hesitation. The couple looked at Hermione. The little witch was blushing at this time, looking around, very cute. But she didn't make any objections either. In this way, the four of them entered Granger's house very awkwardly, and the embarrassment continued. Thanks to Weaking, number 505 and the martial arts guest for their recommendation votes. Weaking and number 505 have been voting every day. Thank you very much. Chapter 31, Relief and Visit. The experience of this holiday, whether in the past life or this life, can be ranked first in Kyle's list of holidays with the most accidents. The suspicious Granger couple even suspected whether Kyle was interested in Hermione. After entering the house, they sat on the sofa, watching TV while asking Kyle and Hermione in a roundabout way. Kyle had begun to reflect on whether he was really too vigilant. But think about it, the nearest hotel to Granger's house is also a 10-minute drive away. If something really happens, it will be too late for Kyle to rush over. Anyway, since he has already moved in, Kyle can only stick to it with a thick face. They are not very familiar with each other, and they are in two different worlds. They have almost no common language, and can only awkwardly talk about nothing. And Mrs. Granger's questioning of Kyle's situation is even more embarrassing than talking about nothing. Kyle, did you find it difficult when you just entered the magic world? No. What's difficult about beating up a classmate? Kyle, you will graduate in a few years. What are your plans? Will you return to the world of ordinary people, or stay in the magic world? What plans can I have? I want to be the Minister of Magic, but Fudge would not agree. Poor child, have you ever thought about looking for your parents? Wouldn't it be easier to find them with magic? Dear, don't resent your parents. Every child is the angel of their parents. No parents will abandon their children, unless they have to. My parents are in China in another world, and I don't plan to find them. I don't know what Hermione thinks, but Kyle is really powerless to complain. Although he was embarrassed to death, Kyle still tried to maintain his calmness and tried to deal with Mrs. Granger's questioning. As for Hermione, after failing to interrupt Mrs. Granger's questioning countless times and being told that she and Kyle were having a good chat, she sat aside with a look of despair and left everything to fate. The living room of Mr. Granger's house can be called a large-scale social death scene for Kyle and Hermione. Since she guessed that Kyle was interested in Hermione, Mrs. Granger's questions have never stopped. Is it true that mothers in every world and every country are like this? Kyle could only think so. Finally, Mr. Granger couldn't stand it anymore. Perhaps he had heard enough gossip, so he interrupted Mrs. Granger. Dear, it's getting late. The children have been busy all day. Let them rest early. Oh, look at me. I didn't pay attention to the time when I started chatting. Kyle, Hermione, go wash up. Kyle, the guest room is on the first floor, and there is a bathroom next to it. I'll take you there. Mr. Granger's rescue made Hermione shout long live father. Although it was embarrassing, Kyle thought it was quite interesting. After all, you can't see Hermione like this in school. A day of running around and being vigilant in front of number 12 Grimmauld Place consumed a lot of Kyle's physical strength. But the unknown dangers prevented Kyle from resting directly. After confirming that the Grangers were asleep, Kyle began to make arrangements. After spreading a circle of extremely sensitive magic potions around the house, riding a broom, setting up hidden traps outside all the doors and windows, and placing a peephole at the entrance, Kyle felt relieved and lay down on the bed with his eyes closed to sleep. Unconsciously, Kyle was always half asleep and half awake due to his inner vigilance, and he would wake up alertly at the slightest movement. Knock, knock, knock. Senior Kyle, Senior Kyle. I don't know what time it was. Kyle vaguely heard a knock on the door, and he turned over and sat up. Before he could hold the wand tightly, he heard Hermione calling him in a low voice. He had to lower his voice. If the Grangers saw this, they would think that their daughter attacked the school senior at night. Knowing that Hermione must have a lot of problems in her heart, so she knocked on the door in the middle of the night. Kyle opened the door and let Hermione in. Obviously, entering Kyle's room late at night made Hermione embarrassed, and her face was red. But the little wizard was very imposing. She raised her head and glared at Kyle. Senior Kyle, today's accident is aimed at you, right? How do you plan to solve it? Without any probing or preparation, she went straight to the point. It was obvious that the little witch was extremely angry and uneasy about bringing danger to her parents. Calm down, Hermione. This incident was indeed caused by me. But in fact, no matter who the other party is, they probably won't do anything. We are underage wizards, and the traces in the wands are both surveillance and protection for us. Hearing this, Hermione's expression had eased. Seeing this, Kyle's evaluation of Hermione was even higher. Just by mentioning the traces, Hermione roughly guessed Kyle's thoughts. What a smart child. It seems that you have thought of it. Especially for us wizards who come from the Muggle world, we are even safer. There won't be any magical fluctuations around us. When a little wizard uses magic, it will attract the attention of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Once a large number of magical fluctuations appear in a short period of time, employees of the Ministry of Magic will immediately apparat to check the situation. This is the most powerful protection for underage wizards. Hearing this, Hermione was completely relaxed, and then Kyle said, "So Senior Kyle, you think we are very likely to be safe?" "Yes." Kyle affirmed Hermione's inference. "As long as we don't encounter extremely vicious or completely crazy dark wizards, we are actually very safe. When we encounter danger, we just need to use a lot of magic quickly. No matter what it is, we can attract the protection of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement." Then the senior moved in today and just spread the potion to make a trap. Are they all precautions? Yes. Speaking of this, the little witch's face was completely calm. If Kyle had not explained it clearly to Hermione at this time, and he had made careful precautions and even prepared a way out, I'm afraid that, even if nothing happened in the end, the little witch would still hate Kyle for a long time. After all, it was Kyle who brought danger to her relatives. Anyone would have the same idea. After finally calming Hermione down and urging her to go back to her room to sleep, Kyle lay down again. The little witch left with a red face, completely at ease, but Kyle was not as relaxed as he said, and still maintained due vigilance. It was not until the sun rose that Kyle breathed a sigh of relief. After rushing and hurrying, he finally put away the traps and peepholes set last night before the Grangers got up. The next day was relatively peaceful. The Grangers deliberately closed the clinic for a day to accompany Hermione at home, which also reduced a lot of trouble for Kyle. In a day of chatting and questioning, the time soon came to 5 o'clock. Kyle changed into a wizard robe and took all the small props that might be used. After saying goodbye to the Grangers, He took the invisibility potion and slowly walked to 12 Grimald's place. The Granger seemed to realize something and looked a little uneasy. Hermione, if I'm not back by 7 o'clock, or if there's any emergency, use the method I taught you yesterday. Before leaving, Kyle told Hermione. Chapter 32, Relief and Visit. At 5:58, Kyle had already arrived near 12 Grimald's place. At 5:59, the invisibility potion wore off. At 6 o'clock, before his wizard robes attracted everyone's attention, Kyle slipped into the old house. The constant muggle-repelling spell made passers-by around him ignore Kyle in strange clothes and the eerie old house. No, not eerie. At this moment, Kyle's pupils shrank, and he subconsciously squinted his eyes. The scratches on the guardrails and gates, the mottled wall, the spiderwebs, and the overgrown weeds. These elements that appeared yesterday, enough to make the black house disguised as a haunted house, disappeared. The gate and guardrails were repainted with black paint, and the original weeds were replaced by neat lawns. The mottled wall was also treated with magic, and there was no floor. From the outside, in just one night, number 12 Grimald Place was transformed from an abandoned house that could be regarded as a haunted house to the magnificent Black Mansion. Just this renovated old house can vaguely see the glory and honor of Black, who was the core of the British aristocratic wizards. Click. With the sound of the door lock opening, the door of the Black Mansion was opened from the inside. The person behind the door was also revealed. It should not be said that the person behind the door, because after opening the door, a house elf appeared. Young master, is that you? The voice of the house elf was hoarse and deep. Although Kyle did not see elves often, he was still sure that this elf was very old. There were many wrinkles on his body, and his ears were full of white hair. But it can be seen that this elf-named creature has carefully cleaned himself up. His body is very clean. The vest he wears is extremely worn, but there is no trace of dirt after washing. Its bloodshot grey eyes are looking at Kyle wetly. If you mean the invited person, it's me. Great, the hostess has been waiting for you for too long. Creature should really go tell the hostess the news now. But Creature still has to lead the way for the young master. Creature wants to punish himself by clamping his ears on the oven door. Kyle was already a little uneasy, and Creature's neurotic behavior made it even more serious. The elf's words undoubtedly revealed a lot of information, especially the title of Young Master. Kyle didn't believe that any visitor would be called Young Master by the house elf. And the title of Hostess, does it refer to Narcissa Malfoy? In silence, Kyle followed Creature into the old house. The old house was also cleaned up spotlessly. All the wall lamps on the wall were turned on, and a huge crystal chandelier was hung on the ceiling of the hall, making the whole room look brilliant. But strangely, the whole hall was extremely empty, and the hostess mentioned by Creature was not seen. Creature, who is inviting me? It's me. A female voice came from Kyle's side. The owner of the voice was actually a portrait. Kyle suddenly realized that this person should be Creature's hostess. Good evening, ma'am. Although it was just a portrait, Kyle still did not lack the proper etiquette. Thank you for your visit, young man, and please forgive my rudeness in your invitation. After all, I can only communicate with you in this way. Although the words were a little sad, Mrs. Black's tone was not weak at all, and it was full of aristocratic pride from beginning to end. It's nothing, ma'am. I just don't know why the lady went to such great lengths to first let the old black house come back to life, and then arrange such a solemn meeting. Kyle actually had his own guess, although it was a little unbelievable. Mrs. Black stared at Kyle deeply. I don't know if it was Kyle's illusion, but he actually saw admiration in the eyes of a portrait. You are wrong about one thing, young man. Since the end of the war, I have closed number 12 Grimald's Place. The old family house has been passed down for 1,000 years, and countless protective magics have been released during this period. Just activating a part of it is enough to ensure that no one in the magic world can discover the old house without permission. Do you understand now? It is not me who made a big fuss to make the black house reappear, but it took the initiative to appear in front of you. Creature discovered this and told me about it. The whole old house is cheering for you. Creature, who is born with black blood, has also become energetic. All this shows that you have pure black blood flowing in your body. I think you understand what I'm talking about. A descendant of black. At this point, the voice of the portrait has become uncontrollably excited and high. "Can you tell me your name, young man?" "Kyle Shafiq, madam." Although Kyle was confused now, he still answered quickly. He still needed Mrs. Black to reveal more information. But Kyle's words made Mrs. Black's face darken. What is Regulus doing? How could he let the Black family's direct descendant have the surname Shafiq? "Regulus? Why are you so sure that my father is Regulus and not Sirius?" "Because after so many years of losing the Black bloodline, only the return of the direct bloodline will make the old house so cheerful. In fact, Narcissa would occasionally come back to visit an old woman like me over the years, but she is a collateral bloodline after all, and could not revive the dormant old house. This is why the old house looked dilapidated when you first saw it. As for Sirius," the portrait's voice became extremely cold. "I don't think he would be kind enough to leave descendants for Black." "Okay Kyle, tell me about your experience with your father." "He was just a deserter." "Can't my Black family provide him with shelter? As long as the manor is closed, what can it do, even if Voldemort comes in person?" "Mrs. Black is so disrespectful to Voldemort? What's the reason? Is it because of the resentment of the bloodline being severed due to the war, or is there another reason?" Keeping this doubt in his heart, Kyle lowered his head slightly and slowly told his story. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I have never seen Regulus. I was born in 1978 and was placed at the door of a Muggle orphanage as soon as I was born. There was only a note with the name Kyle Shafiq on it, so I have never seen Regulus." Kyle's tone was a little indifferent. Being an orphan in both his lives, Kyle was somewhat repulsive to the word parents. As for lowering his head slightly, it was a sign of sadness in the eyes of Mrs. Black. But Kyle knew that it was just to prevent Mrs. Black from seeing the calculation in his eyes. It was impossible for Kyle to regard the Black family that suddenly appeared as his own family. What Kyle was considering was whether this sudden family background was a good thing or a bad thing for him. Chapter 33 Blake. "I was born in 1978 and was placed at the door of a Muggle orphanage. There was only a piece of paper with the name Kyle Shafiq on it, so I have never seen Regulus." The expression on Mrs. Black's face suddenly disappeared, and her hands tightly grasped the armrests of the chair, and the corners of her mouth trembled. Whether it was the pride at the beginning, or the high pitch, excitement, and anger later, they all disappeared at this moment, leaving only a dead silence. "Muggle world." The voice seemed to be squeezed directly from the chest, hoarsened with a sense of tearing. "My little Lee, what on earth have you been through? What on earth have you been through?" Mrs. Black's voice became lower and lower, and became more and more empty and weak. Pain has appeared on Mrs. Black's face uncontrollably, and her eyes are full of self-blame. Even if it is just a portrait, Kyle seems to be able to feel the pain its owner is experiencing. Unlike Mrs. Black's extremely suppressed pain, Creature directly let out a huge wail beside Kyle. "My little master." It was Creature who failed to protect the little master, and Creature did not do what the little master ordered. Creature deserves death, and Creature's head should be chopped off. In the wailing, Creature kept repeating these words intermittently and was already out of breath. At this time, the master and servant were completely surrounded by this pain and despair. Yes, it was despair. Even though Regulus had been missing for more than 10 years, Mrs. Blair still stubbornly believed in her little Reel, but hid somewhere, and dared not see her. Now, all hope was shattered. The murmured words came out of Mrs. Black's mouth. "Reel, you are so proud and proud of your bloodline. What kind of despair made you send your child to the Muggle world? Why don't you come to your mother for help?" The pain and self-blame in the words were clearly visible. The arrogance at the first meeting had completely disappeared. At this time, Mrs. Black was just a desperate old lady, dying and hopeless. Mrs. Black and Creature completely forgot about Kyle's existence. They were completely crushed by this sudden news. They could have deceived themselves before. The young master of the Black family chose to hide because he was afraid of Voldemort, or even afraid of being expelled from the family. Maybe he was living peacefully somewhere now. But the appearance of Kyle broke this fantasy. No wizard would abandon his cub, especially when Kyle was the only direct descendant of Black's paternal line. Time passed by bit, and at this time, only Creature's wailing was left in the hall. As for Mrs. Black, she could no longer make a sound, but just stared blankly at the front. with a terrifyingly empty look in her eyes. Seeing that 7 o'clock was approaching, Kyle had to leave the hall and quickly leave the black old house. During this period, the master and servant did not express anything, and did not even notice his departure. He returned to number 505, Islington district at the fastest speed. At this time, there were only 10 minutes left until 7 o'clock. Hermione and Mr. and Mrs. Granger were all sitting in the living room, looking anxious. Hearing the noise at the door, Hermione almost jumped up from the sofa, pulled out her wand, and was about to attack, but Kyle reacted quickly. "Calm down. Hermione, it's me, there's no problem." Hearing this, Hermione's expression relaxed all of a sudden, and she threw herself into the sofa with a bang. "Mr. Granger, madam, I made you worry," Kyle said to the two of them apologetically. "Kyle, what's going on?" Mr. Granger's words were still polite, but the dissatisfaction in his tone was obvious. "I'm sorry, sir. It was a noble who wanted to cooperate with me, but was too proud of his status to lower his attitude, so he put on a noble air and wanted to give me a blow. It's also because I thought too much and was too suspicious, so I made a big mistake. I'm really sorry." Kyle's sincere apology and explanation barely calmed the frightened couple. At the same time, he was full of dissatisfaction with this noble who suddenly appeared. What are they doing? Do they think this is the Middle Ages? If this were the Muggle world, I would have called the police and reported them to the newspapers. Kyle, you can't just give up and give up your interests to them just because of their threats. At this time, Mr. Granger had transferred all his anger to the wizard nobles who suddenly appeared. He cursed angrily while giving Kyle this idea, and soon, the couple turned the topic to number 12 Grimmauld Place. "I didn't expect that the legendary number 12 Grimmauld Place actually exists, and it is the residence of a wizard noble. I really want to see what expression Weaver will have when he knows the truth." In response, Kyle could only smile bitterly, comforting them while echoing them. But Hermione obviously didn't believe Kyle's words. Although she didn't say anything, her suspicious face said it all. As a last resort, Kyle could only whisper, when the Grangers weren't paying attention, "Number 12 Grimmauld Place is the old house of my father's family. It was because they sensed my blood that they showed up for me to see." Hearing this, the little witch finally relaxed completely. Not only did she put away her wand, she also asked with great interest, "The Shafiq family? I remember that the Shafiq was also one of the 28 holy pureblood families, but they have disappeared for a long time. I didn't expect that the Shafiq's old house was actually in London. Kyle, can I go visit it?" "I'm sorry, I'm afraid not." After a little hesitation, Kyle decided to tell Hermione the truth. "Shafiq should be my mother's surname. Number 12 Grimmauld Place is the old house of the Black family. Hermione, I haven't decided whether to accept all this, so I hope you can keep it a secret for me." With Kyle's understanding of Hermione, just the number 12 Grimmauld Place is enough for her to find out which family the old house belongs to in the library. She must also know about Black's past, and that it is an extremely dark family, so why not tell her everything now? Although she still didn't understand what the Black family represented, the little witch was still considerate, and didn't ask any more questions. Finally, the Grangers, who had been discussing enthusiastically for a while, calmed down, and Kyle took the opportunity to say goodbye. "Thank you very much for Mr. and Mrs. Granger's hospitality. I have really disturbed you a lot in the past 2 days. Now that things have been sorted out, I'm no longer suitable to live here. If I stay any longer, little Hermione will have a problem with me." While saying goodbye, he teased Hermione. Hermione didn't say anything, but just cutely frowned at him. Mr. Granger did not directly agree to Kyle's resignation, and this time his attempt to keep him really failed. "Kyle, why don't you stay at my house during the holidays? If you move away, you will have to stay in a hotel, which is not as convenient as living at home." Obviously, after this incident, Mr. Granger completely recognized Kyle. When danger arose, "Kyle, you didn't think of running away at the first time, but stayed and tried every means to protect us, even risking your life to a certain extent. How can you move out and live in a hotel now?" This was what Mrs. Granger said just now, when she was moved. Considering that the Black family might become a crucial part of his plan, Kyle had to resolutely decline the Granger's kindness and walked into the door of number 12 Grimmauld Place again. Thanks to Waking and number 505 for their recommendation votes. Love you. Chapter 34 Blake. The hall of the black old house was dead silent, with only creatures sobbing from time to time. The expression on Mrs. Black's face was terrifyingly calm, and it was obvious that Mrs. Black guessed Kyle's thoughts and went straight to the point. Kyle, since you have returned to the old house, it means that you still want something from Black. I wonder what this impoverished family can bring you? Money? Power? Or magical knowledge? Kyle, what do you want? Mrs. Black was no longer as arrogant as when they first met, nor was she as sad as before. At this moment, she was like a demon crawling out of hell, and her voice was cold and terrifying. She stared at Kyle like a poisonous snake that would bite anyone. If when Kyle just appeared, Mrs. Black was a noble lady who was arrogant but gentle and patient with the younger generation, then now she has completely turned into a desperate and crazy dark housewife. At this moment, Black's paranoid and dark personality was fully displayed in her. Black still has some connections in the magic world. I asked about you, Kyle. You are talented, powerful, and ambitious, but your starting point is too low. You have no foundation in the magic world. The peaceful magic world will not allow the rise of new forces. No matter how outstanding you are just working for other wizard families. No matter which industry you are involved in, you will inevitably face the encirclement and suppression of the old forces, unless you distribute most of the profits like your toy puppet. Mrs. Blair's current situation made Kyle silent. Even if I have a golden finger, what can I do? Even if one day I really hold up the floating city, what can I do? The potions, all chemical items, and even all aspects of the floating city will still be controlled by these wizard nobles. Even these 1,000-year-old families may take out a contract that I don't know when to tell Kyle that the floating city is yours, but the land you took off has been our family for hundreds of years. Absolute strength can crush all of this, but it takes time, and no one knows what these 1,000-year-old families have hidden. This is also the reason why Kyle returned to the Black family. A family with declining members, but with enough connections, wealth and background in the magic world, will become the best stage for Kyle, providing Kyle with more space and sufficient support for his growth. But how can Kyle let a portrait take the lead? You guessed it right, ma'am. The Black family can provide me with enough help, but this is not essential, right? On the contrary, while accepting Black's help, I seem to have to pay a lot. Whether it is Black's dark and brutal reputation in the past few decades, or the open and covered hostility, you know, whether it is a dark wizard or a white wizard, there are many who are hostile to Black. Kyle's words did not make Mrs. Black angry. On the contrary, an idiot who was overwhelmed by the power of Black, and promised her requests, by relying on his status as the only heir would make her completely disappointed. Mrs. Black in the portrait adjusted her sitting posture, slowly smoothed the wrinkles on her clothes, and replied to Kyle in a leisurely manner. So what? Kyle, you still don't understand what the three words Black mean in the wizarding world. It means more than 30% of the land in the wizarding world. It means 1,000 years of leadership in the wizarding world. It means that, as long as someone from Black stands up, there will be countless supporters behind him again. From the beginning to the end, no matter how the wizarding world changes, the rules are set by the Black, Malfoy, and Lestrange families. Mrs. Black said the most domineering words in the most calm tone. But Kyle had to admit that Mrs. Black did not lie. These are also the embodiment of Black's power and wealth. Without waiting for Kyle to reply, Mrs. Black continued, I heard that you like the library of Hogwarts very much. It is indeed a good place, and the 1,000-year heritage is worth your fascination. But you seem to have forgotten that most of the books in the Hogwarts library were donated by various families over the years, or published publicly by the wizarding world. Of course, some are left by the school's professors. Black's private collection is definitely not as large as Hogwarts in quantity. But how can the quality accumulated over 1,000 years be inferior to Hogwarts? Family inherited magic, undisclosed research, private experimental records, and ideas for magic improvement are the most precious parts of magic knowledge. Hogwarts does not have these, and no wizard family will open these like you. Only the Black family can provide them to you. Kyle admitted that this sentence hit his heart. The library of Hogwarts is indeed huge, but it lacks in-depth research on magic. And this part is the private collection of wizard nobles, which is the heirloom of the family, and will not be easily disclosed to outsiders. Then the last question. Mrs. Black, what do you think of Voldemort? Voldemort is not dead, he just disappeared. Perhaps, one day, he will come back. Hearing this, Mrs. Black narrowed her eyes, her voice became a little long, and at the same time murderous. You are an outstanding young man, Kyle. It has been a long time since I heard someone dare to call Voldemort's name directly. At this point, Mrs. Black has become gnashing her teeth. Kyle's expression is still calm. It is true that Voldemort's strength is extremely powerful, don't be surprised. I don't need to elevate Black by belittling the enemy, but this is the fact. Do you think that the nobles gathered around Voldemort because of his powerful strength and the slogan of pure blood supremacy? Of course, but it seems that there is another hidden story behind this. Kyle replied. Voldemort back then was just a shield put forward by the nobles to fight against Dumbledore. In the beginning, he went to the Black family, the Malfoy family, and the Lestrange family to beg for mercy and gain the support of the nobles. The old guys from the three families chose to support him because of his good strength. The heir of Slytherin? This is simply a joke. The cold and domineering word shocked Kyle completely and completely overturned Kyle's understanding of that period of history. That was a long time ago. In 1958, after being rejected by Dumbledore to become the professor of defense against the dark arts, Voldemort seemed to have completely given up the idea of returning to Hogwarts and decided to make a big splash in the wizarding world. At that time, Dumbledore was very famous and defeated the old demon Gellert Grindelwald, which made him have countless fans. That hypocritical old guy has been promoting the improvement of the treatment of muggle wizards and the abolition of pure blood theory, and has been suppressing pure blood wizards openly or secretly. The powerful strength and huge reputation made Dumbledore extremely difficult to deal with, which put the pure blood nobles at that time in an embarrassing situation. It was to deal with this situation that Abraxas of the Malfoy family, my father Arcturus, and Alvista of the Slytherin family took a fancy to Voldemort, who was active in the dark wizarding world at that time. The three of them were the rulers of the wizarding world of the previous generation. By the way, you must not know that the descendant of Slytherin, who is known as the Supreme Pureblood, Voldemort, is just a half-blood. You can go back to school and look for a man named Tom Riddle, which is Voldemort's real name. In order to support Voldemort, they led the families to cheer for him, opened some of their family collections to him, and provided him with sufficient funds. I have to say that Voldemort is really talented. In just a few years, his strength has surpassed my father and others. His strong strength and excellent eloquence made him an idol of the younger generation. Maybe it was fate. In 1969, my father died in a magic research. The huge explosion blew my father's body to pieces. In 1970, Alvista Slatrange died in a despicable sneak attack. Several dark wizards attacked him and looted his belongings. In the same year, Abraxas Malfoy died of dragonpox. In just 2 years, the three old guys who suppressed Voldemort died one by one, which made Voldemort out of the control of the nobles and began to bite back. In a few years, the remaining few famous old guys also died one by one for various reasons. Now it seems that the deaths of my father and the other two were also caused by Voldemort. In short, Voldemort completely broke free from his shackles around 1972. Lucius Malfoy, who was only 16 years old at the time, completely prostrated himself at Voldemort's feet in order to protect his family property. The family collection of books was completely open to him. It is understandable that this was indeed an extremely stupid choice. Then there was that idiot Rosia Slatrange. Unlike Lucius, who was forced to do so, Rosia was simply hopelessly stupid. He actually worshipped Voldemort madly. He dedicated everything he had to Voldemort, including all his collection of books and all his wealth. I really don't know how old Slatrange cultivated such a fool. If he crawled out of the grave, he would definitely clean up the mess himself. At this point, Mrs. Black was completely surrounded by anger, and hidden under the anger was deep humiliation. Voldemort, who had already become powerful, actually turned around and forced the Black family to follow him. and he specifically asked the younger generation of Black to follow him. At that time, Sirius had already defected to Gryffindor. For the sake of the family, I could only let Regulus stand up and become a Death Eater. Mrs. Black could no longer hide her sadness and covered her eyes helplessly. He was so naive, and he also agreed with Voldemort's slogan. I thought that, no matter how crazy Voldemort was, he would not let a 16-year-old child go to the battlefield. With Black's background, he could always protect little Real. At most Black would close the old house and lie dormant for an era. As long as people are still there, Black can always take back what they have lost. Who would have thought that Real? Sadness made Mrs. Black unable to continue. Kyle did not speak either, quietly sorting out the information he had just received. I didn't expect that there were so many games behind that chaotic era. Obviously, the wizard nobles of the previous generation lost to Voldemort in the game, and eventually buried with him in his madness, suffering heavy losses. After a long time, Mrs. Black finally sorted out her mood, and forced herself to calm down. I've heard the story, Kyle. Tell me what you think. What is your final decision? Accept him, Kyle. This is your destiny. As a descendant of Black, no matter what obstacles lie ahead, you will eventually be king. But, Mrs. Black, what is the price? Thanks to Waking, number 505, Yi Shen Leng Yuan, and 80 post enjoy loneliness for your recommendation votes. PS1, this is the only chapter today, and it's a big one. Since I started coding, I dare not play games or read novels, so I decided to let myself go today and play the game console PS2. My hand is really bad. It takes nearly 2 hours to write and revise a chapter. 2 chapters a day means 4 hours. It's really miserable. I really envy those tentacle monsters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Decision 1. But, Mrs. Black, what is the price? All of this. Black's wealth, power, and glory will all be inherited by you, but at the same time Black's hatred must also be ended by you. If Real was killed by an unknown dark wizard, then find the murderer and kill him. If it was Voldemort's hand, then find him and kill him. If it was Dumbledore's hand. At this point, Mrs. Black paused for a long time, and finally said, then kill him. The old woman's words were murderous, but the first half of the content did not surprise Kyle, except that Dumbledore was something he did not expect. But think about it, Kyle really can't rule out Dumbledore. Since Regulus disappeared, the Black main line has been completely cut off. Voldemort has lost a crucial supporter, and is completely helpless. At that time, the head of the Black family, Orion Black, was bedridden. His eldest son broke out of the house, and his second son disappeared. He couldn't continue to ask the only remaining Mrs. Black to go out and fight for him. As for Bellatrix Black, she had married into the Slytherin family at that time. Even when she served under Voldemort, she represented the Slytherin family, adhering to the idea that whoever benefits is suspicious. Dumbledore is indeed a big suspect. However, Kel certainly could not agree to such an outrageous request from Mrs. Black. Whether it was Voldemort or Dumbledore, they were both inhumanly powerful. Kel would not easily agree to fight against these two big bosses. I'm sorry, ma'am. Black's wealth is indeed very tempting to me, but it is not enough for me to confront Voldemort and Dumbledore head on. What's the matter, Kyle? You looked so confident just now, but you are scared back by these two names. Do you admit that you can't reach their level? No need to use provocation, ma'am. I know my needs very well, and I also know my limits. I believe I can reach, or even surpass Voldemort and Dumbledore, but this is not a reason for me to swear to fight against them now. You are smarter than I thought, and greedier than I thought, Kyle. But I still say that you know too little about the nobility, and you know nothing about Black. Let me take you to see the true background of the Black family. Creature, take Kyle to the basement to find me. Kyle did not feel angry, because he was despised by Mrs. Black. On the contrary, he hoped that the background of the Black family would be more beyond his expectations. After a long corridor, they finally reached the entrance of the basement. Candles were lit on both sides of the stairs going down. The layout of the basement was very simple, a long and narrow corridor with 2 doors on each side. Kyle followed Creature into the first room on the left, and the view was suddenly clear. This was a huge room with portraits of Black's ancestors hanging on the walls. At this time, the characters in the portraits gathered together, looking at Kyle, and discussing in a low voice in twas and threes. One of the people who talked loudly was Phineas Nigellus Black, who was known as the most unpopular headmaster in the history of Hogwarts. Obviously, it was this former headmaster of Hogwarts who told Mrs. Black about Kyle. At this time, the old woman was already waiting for Kyle's arrival in a huge portrait in the middle of the room. Kyle, I believe you have met the ancestors of my Black family. It is no exaggeration to say that the Black family has witnessed the changes in the wizarding world and is also an important part of wizard history. The ancestors in front of you are part of that history. Here, whether it is potions, alchemy, magic circles, herbology, wandology, dueling, black magic, or even healing magic, you can find corresponding experts. Whatever you learn in Hogwarts, there must be some magic or an article written by the Black ancestors. This is the reason why the Black family has stood for thousands of years. No matter what difficulties the Black family has experienced, as long as these portraits are still there, the Black heritage will not be cut off. Isn't your refusal an excuse that Voldemort and Dumbledore are too powerful? The ancestors of the Black family are enough to reveal to you the reasons why they are so powerful and help you reach the same height. Unique magic books, magic materials that have disappeared from the outside world, and all kinds of unknown magic techniques. As long as you open your mouth, you can get everything you want. You will get all of this. You just need to agree to hold the inheritance ceremony and swear to avenge Regulus at the ceremony. The high-pitched words rang in Kyle's ears. I have to admit that Black really has the capital to be proud. These portraits almost represent the history of the wizarding world. As long as it is a deed recorded in the history books, whether it is in front of the stage or behind the scenes, even if you are just watching and eating melons, you can always find Black's figure. But if he admits defeat like this, Kyle will have no say in front of this group of portraits and can only develop step by step under the arrangement of this group of portraits. Even if they respect Kyle's choice on the surface, it is hard to guarantee that they will not guide Kyle to develop according to their ideas behind the scenes. In terms of scheming, even if Kyle's past and present lives add up to more than 40 years old, he will definitely not be able to beat these old guys who have been immersed in conspiracy and intrigue for 1,000 years. Can you teach me everything? Then, what about flying over death? Kyle did not rush to respond, but continued to ask questions that interested him, intending to get more information. Leaping over death. Is that what Voldemort is pursuing? A man with a head full of silver hair, this ancestor appeared gentle and polite compared to the other Blacks who had arrogance carved on their faces. Kyle, this is a profound question. It's philosophy and magic. It's not what you should consider now. Of course, sir. But Voldemort will return one day. The more I understand about him, the more confident I will be in dealing with him, right? Well, if you insist. Someone once said that life itself is meaningless, and only death can make you understand the true meaning of human nature. But this is undoubtedly too extreme. The meaning of life is to enjoy the life process itself, and death is a part of life. If you can't embrace death, how can you start a new journey? As for Voldemort's pursuit of flying over death, it is undoubtedly crazy, but stupid. Kyle, actually you guessed wrong about one thing. Voldemort is not missing, he is really dead. It's just that some of the preparations he made took effect, allowing him to linger on in a half-dead state. When we discovered that Voldemort was becoming more and more twisted and crazy, and had no reason at all, we knew that the pureblood nobles were doomed to lose this time. Arcturus, you actually lost to such a stupid kid. You really brought shame to the Black family. Arcturus, who was named beside him, could only smile bitterly. Sir, do you mean that the ancient families at that time had already noticed that Voldemort was wrong and knew what he had done? No, Kyle. Voldemort's secrets were well protected. But there were still some families that were rational enough and not blinded by Voldemort's victory. It was a pity that they had been tied to Voldemort's ship and could not get off. But the old guys in those families were not easy to deal with. They began to play the game of pretending to obey and secretly communicated with the Ministry of Magic and Dumbledore. This is why they escaped trial by paying only a sum of gold galleons after the war. As for Voldemort's way of escaping death, Kyle, have you heard of Horcruxes? Kyle's heart moved when he heard this. It seems that the information from his previous life was indeed correct. It was really a Horcrux. This is a very ancient magic item. It is said to have been invented by Herbo of Greece for the purpose of flying over death. But he obviously failed. Is this method not successful? That's not the case, Kyle. This method can indeed escape death. It can even allow the caster to gain enormous magical power, making the dark magic he releases more powerful. But all this comes at a price. The caster will become extremely crazy, just like Voldemort. But you said that other families don't know Voldemort's secret? Yes, perhaps there were wizards in ancient times who continued Herbo's research and improved the Horcruxes, but they undoubtedly failed. This also caused this method to be gradually lost, so that this side effect is no longer known to people. I also collected information in this area out of curiosity when I was young, and only discovered this drawback after trying it. You tried the Horcrux, but you don't look like you. Kyle didn't finish, but the meaning was self-evident. This black ancestor neither avoided death nor went crazy. Of course I didn't try it myself, Kyle. I tried to guide a fairly talented wizard at the time to try the Horcruxes, so I discovered this secret. According to my observation, the more Horcruxes you make, the more powerful they become, but at the same time, the crazier they become. This is the secret of how Voldemort went from being a powerful dark wizard to the most powerful dark wizard of this century. He made more than one Horcrux. The portrait's tone was still unhurried, full of aristocratic magnificence and elegance, but the content of the words made Kyle shudder. Using the life of an innocent wizard as an experiment, but being able to say it in such a calm tone, he really deserves to be called the Dark Black. Okay Kyle, I've said so much, it's time to tell me your decision. Thanks to Waking and Bayou for their recommendation votes. Chapter 36 I will take my gifts to 12 Grimmauld Place. The next day, Kyle and Hermione sat opposite each other in a coffee shop not far from 505 Islington. So Kyle, have you decided to inherit the Black family? After listening to Kyle's statement, of course, the revenge part was concealed. The little witch asked him. Although she had not returned to the Hogwarts library to check the information, the little witch had already known from Kyle's description that this was a dark wizard family similar to Malfoy. I think the most important factor affecting me is the best opportunity to climb to the pinnacle of magic, a win-win situation now and in the future. Have you decided, or do you want to think about it again? I haven't decided yet. Everyone wants to know the answer, Kyle, whether it's me or the portrait of Black. What is your decision? This holiday is very difficult. This holiday I will take my talent to number 12 Grimmauld Place and inherit the Black family. Black family, is this your decision last night? Yes, I made a decision last night. The two then fell into silence. To the little witch, the dark wizard family is undoubtedly evil, but Senior Kyle is not an evil person, which makes her wonder how to persuade Kyle to give up this decision. After all, it represents huge wealth and power, and no one can give up easily. Kyle, on the other hand, is still thinking about what happened last night. Facing the temptation and expectation of Blake, Kyle finally found it difficult to refuse, but when he decided to accept it, he also made a bet with the portraits of Blake. A decision about dominance, whether Kyle is the leader or the yes man of the portraits. Although the portraits promised that when Kyle is good enough and strong enough, they will take the initiative to give up power and assist him with all their strength. But the time required is too long for Kyle. The night before, in the basement of the old house of Blake. Okay, Kyle, I have said so much, it's time to tell me your decision. Mrs. Blair urged impatiently. The portraits in the basement also stopped whispering, and all looked at him with expectant eyes. Thanks to Phineas, the Blacks all knew about Kyle's talent. Even from their perspective spanning 1,000 years, Kyle's talent was one of the best. As long as he was taught correctly, he could lead the Blacks to glory again. As for the old lady's request, in the Black's view, as long as Kyle could exchange his talent and grow up smoothly, even if he could not compete with Voldemort and Dumbledore head on, he would not be much worse. At that time, as long as they persuaded the old lady to give up direct revenge, it would not be difficult to kill the two of them with some means behind their backs. After all, these conspiracies and tricks were exactly what the nobles were good at. Glancing around at the portraits, Kyle finally spoke. Of course, old lady, no one can refuse such an attractive suggestion, but I hope to postpone the inheritance ceremony to the summer vacation. One reason is that I have too many arrangements during the Easter vacation. Another reason is that I hope to make a bet with you. A bet? Interesting idea. Then Kyle, what do you want to bet on? Dominance. Kyle thought that his words would make these old guys furious, or think that he was ignorant of the world. Unexpectedly, he was greeted with more eager eyes from the portraits. Kyle, I have to say that you are more ambitious and more outstanding than I thought. Whether it is Black or Slytherin, they will not reject ambition, as long as you have the ability to match it. Kyle, tell me how you want to bet. The voice was low, but revealed a hint of joy. It was Phineas who took over the conversation. It seems that even among the ancestors of Black, Phineas has enough prestige and status to speak on their behalf. Let's bet on my talent. I'm confident enough in my talent, but you don't know enough about it, so let's bet on talent. The deadline is the last day before the summer vacation. Whether it is a spell, a curse, a magic ritual, or a magic circle, alchemy, you come up with a topic. If I complete it, the future plan will be based on me. You will give me advice and fill in the gaps. If I don't master it, then I will admit defeat and accept all your arrangements until I get your approval and take over the leadership. At this moment, Kyle was sharp and confident. Looking at each other, the portraits made up their minds. In the end, Phineas stood up. Kyle, as you wish. Please recommend and vote for the monthly ticket. It's not easy to write a new book. I need the support of all the readers. I hope to have a good looking data in exchange for the editor boss's trial push. P.S. Several friends have insisted on voting for me. I'm really grateful. As a new author and a new book, it is really with the support of several friends that I can persist all the way. Blade bowed and thanked several friends. PS2, I wrote this chapter with my ID card in hand. Kobe is the best in the world. Chapter 37 Regulus. After making a bet with the Blacks, Kyle was not in a hurry to determine what to learn. Instead, he went out and sat in the cafe next to the square, waiting for Granger and Mr. Weaver to arrive. Although they did not have time to communicate in detail yesterday, the enthusiastic Mr. Granger still helped Kyle to make an appointment with Mr. Weaver today. Soon, both of them arrived at the cafe. After ordering coffee and dessert, Mr. Weaver asked first, Kyle, Wendell told me that you have something to make. Did you make a small invention in school? Haha, I hope I can have the talent to make an invention, but obviously I don't have the talent in this area. I have a friend who hopes to make a template with a complex pattern, but he doesn't know where to make it. It happens that Mr. Granger said that your company is in the field of mechanical processing, so I consult you. Then he took out his own drawings. Sir, look, I need to hollow out this pattern on a specific metal plate. Is this easy to do? Mr. Granger took the drawings and looked at them carefully. Is it a magic circle? Yes, sir, you know, this is. Don't say it, Kyle. How could I not know what you guys are thinking? Did you join a magic club? Haha, we also had a magic club in school at that time, but we were better than you. Magic circles were directly hand-drawn, and you had to make a template to draw a magic circle. Yes. Kyle was speechless. Before he could say his excuse, Mr. Weaver had already figured out the reason. You guys are quite good at playing, but I can't make your template. Our company mainly purchases parts and assembles them, but I can recommend someone to you. His company can definitely do it. Sure enough, people in the industry have a way. Although Mr. Weaver failed to solve the problem directly, he was in the same industry and knew who to find. Then I'll trouble you, Uncle Weaver. Where is your friend's company? How can I contact him? Haha, it's very convenient to contact him. You know him. He's the Oriental man I introduced to you yesterday, Wei King. Thinking of Mr. Wei King whom he met yesterday, Kyle was still very impressed. He had a handsome face and elegant temperament. Then Mr. Weaver invited Mr. Wellyking to come. The four of them sat down and chatted while drinking coffee. After looking at Kyle's drawings, Mr. Wellyking looked very relaxed. This drawing is not difficult. Just let the technician handle it. I will bring the drawing to him tomorrow, and I can bring the template back the day after tomorrow night. After the mold making was decided very simply, Kyle and the others chatted about everything. Mr. Granger also made an appointment with the two to watch the game together before getting up and returning home. Kyle also followed them back to number 505, Islington. Kyle, have you solved your problem? As soon as he entered the house, the little witch rushed over to ask Kyle about his progress. I would also like to thank Mr. Granger for his help. It has been solved. The most important thing for this holiday has been done. After answering the little witch's words, Kyle turned to look at Mrs. Granger. Madam, thank you and Mr. Granger for your help these days. At the same time, to celebrate my successful solution of the problem, I have booked a seat at Andrew's restaurant opposite. Let's have lunch there. He said that their steak is very good. Okay, Kyle. It just so happens that Hermione said she wanted to eat steak this morning after a few people cleaned up. They went to the restaurant for lunch. This meal was both Kyle's thank you dinner and a farewell dinner. Unexpectedly, the mold making was completed without any twists and turns. Kyle decided to stay at the Black Mansion for the rest of the holiday, confirm the content of the bet and sort out the Black family's collection of books at the same time, at least to know what books are in it. After finishing the meal and agreeing to visit Mr. Weaking together the next night, Kyle got up and said goodbye and returned to the Black Mansion. Before he even got close to 12 Grimmauld Place, Creature had already sensed Kyle and was waiting for him with the door of the old house wide open. Young master, have you had lunch? Do you need Creature to prepare lunch? Creature looked at Kyle eagerly. It seemed that being able to continue to serve Black had reactivated Creature's vitality. His mental state became completely different. Not only did he become energetic again, he was no longer as nervous as when they first met. At the same time, he always cleaned himself up, fearing that he would lose face for Black. No, Creature, I just had dinner outside. Can you take me directly to the family library? I want to see if there are any books suitable for my current study. Of course, young master. Creature will take you there right away. Creature will also prepare afternoon tea and cakes for you to drink while reading. Creature will provide the most comfortable service for you, just like serving young Master Lee. Kyle smiled. It was really a pleasure to have a dedicated house elf which could provide meticulous service for the master. Creature took Kyle back to the basement. As the foundation of the family, the library was also placed in the basement by the Black family for protection. Entering the first room on the right side of the basement corridor, Kyle once again sighed at the heritage of these 1,000-year-old families. The area of the library is obviously inferior to the library of Hogwarts, but it is stronger than most public libraries Kyle has seen. Rows of bookshelves stand in between, and a large part of the bookshelves have very obvious protective spells, which are supposed to protect precious magic books and prevent young wizards with insufficient strength from contacting advanced magic too early. Young master, you can sit here to read after choosing a book. This is the favorite seat of the young master Lee. He said that the view here is the best, and it is also convenient to change books. Creature served Kyle diligently, but Kyle had been aroused by the little master in Creature's mouth. In a short period of contact, Kyle had heard Creature mention him countless times, especially when he just got the bad news about Regulus. Creature's performance was even more exaggerated than Mrs. Black. Creature, it seems that Regulus treats you very well, and you can't forget him all the time. As soon as Kyle finished speaking, Creature's big eyes were filled with tears, and then Teo burst into tears. It was Creature who failed to protect the little master. The little master is so kind and friendly. Creature's head should be chopped off. The little master didn't come back, and Creature didn't do what the little master ordered. Creature shouldn't continue to live. Kyle's words detonated Creature, and his emotions collapsed directly beyond Kyle's expectations. Helpless, Kyle had to give up looking for books and comfort Creature instead. But Creature, who had already collapsed, had no response to his comfort. Even if Kyle ordered Creature to stop crying, he just stopped wailing loudly and punished himself while sobbing softly. Kyle, who accidentally caused Creature to collapse, also felt very sorry. Seeing that he couldn't comfort Creature, he could only choose to change the topic to divert Creature's attention. Okay, Creature, what did you fail to do as Regulus ordered you to do? Was it to take good care of Mrs. Black? You have done very well. No need to blame yourself. You are the most outstanding house elf I have ever seen. Although Kyle had not seen many elves, it did not prevent him from comforting Creature in this way. But Kyle's words seemed to press a switch on Creature's body, causing Creature's tears to burst out directly, and he collapsed again. Creature did not do what the young master ordered, and did not take good care of the lady for the young master. Damn Creature. While crying loudly, he slapped his head hard, as if trying to make himself more neurotic. Okay, Creature, can you tell me what Regulus ordered you to do? Maybe I can help you complete it. In order to get rid of Creature's collapse, Kyle could only promise this, but who knew that this actually made Creature cry even louder? The young master won't let me say it. Kyle was speechless, assigning an unfinished task to the elf, and not letting him tell others, not asking for help from others. Regulus, you can do it. How much do you dislike your elf for not being neurotic enough? Helplessly, Kyle continued to coax Kyle and said, is it the task that Regulus assigned to you before he disappeared? Then you should tell it to Mrs. Black and let Mrs. Black know about Regulus's last life. A friend died but a poor Taoist died. Kyle decided to stir up trouble and hand over the collapsed Creature to Mrs. Black for handling. But the young master won't let me tell you. Creature can't tell the lady. Kyle's words made Creature a little shaken, but he still insisted on Regulus's request. Mrs. Black is Regulus' mother and your master. She has the right to know everything about Regulus. You shouldn't hide it from her like this. Go, Creature, go and confess everything to the lady. Is that so? Creature was a little dizzy from what Kyle said. He hesitated and didn't know whether to believe Kyle or insist on Regulus's instructions. His big eyes were full of confusion, and he had forgotten to cry. Of course, you see, I'm your master now, and Mrs. Black is also your master. We are 2:1 with Regulus, so you should listen to us. Creature was completely dizzy and hesitantly didn't know what to do. He was persuaded by Kyle with a confused look on his face and went to Mrs. Black for advice. Kyle didn't breathe a sigh of relief until Creature disappeared from in front of Kyle with an apparition. Finally, Creature, who collapsed when Regulus was mentioned, was sent away, and he could read books quietly. Walking among the bookshelves, Kyle had a general understanding of the layout of the library. The first row of bookshelves on the far left were all infant enlightenment books, including picture books, comic books, and story books. However, to Kyle's surprise, these books were in English, German, French, and even Greek and ancient Hebrew. It seems that the family education of the nobles is more extensive than Kyle imagined. The remaining bookshelves were books suitable for young wizards, as well as various essays and travel notes. It seemed that the first row of bookshelves on the left was prepared for the young wizards in the family. Starting from the second row, the content became more advanced. Different books on spells, potions, alchemy, and magic were placed in different areas, and different protective magics were cast for different levels of difficulty. Even the books in the deepest part of the bookshelf, Kyle couldn't even see the titles, and he couldn't understand the protective magic on them at all, which meant that the content of the books here had completely exceeded Kyle's level of understanding. Forcing him to read would only cause him great harm. Magic is the bridge between the body and the soul, so rashly reading these dangerous books may even hurt the soul. Kyle had just taken a quick tour of the library when he heard a scream of extreme pain resounding throughout the old house. Kyle, come to see me right away, right now, right now. It was Mrs. Black. The voice was filled with the madness in the hall at that time. It seemed that it was not a wise choice to let Creature go to Mrs. Black. Something happened. Chapter 38 Creature. Mrs. Black, what happened? Kyle's face was solemn. He didn't expect that the secret hidden by Creature would cause such a huge shock to Mrs. Black. Could it be that Regulus's last order was related to the mystery of his disappearance? The atmosphere in the hall was solemn. Mrs. Black stared at Creature, as if she wanted to eat him alive. Creature, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect that you would dare to hide such an important thing from us. Is the Black family too kind to you? How dare you let Rail take risks alone? How dare you let Rail face all this alone? Creature did not answer Mrs. Black's question. He had collapsed and was punishing himself unconsciously. In fact, he could no longer hear anything others said. Mrs. Black, I'm sorry to bother you, but could you explain what made you so angry? Mrs. Black didn't say anything, still staring at Creature, and then one of the blacks in the other portraits next to him answered. It was Creature who concealed the truth about Regulus' disappearance, and even now he is still vague, and refuses to explain clearly what happened. Don't bother with your words, Cygnus. I just want to hear Creature explain to me now. The duty of a house elf is to protect and serve the master. Is this how you protect my little Real? Answer me, Creature. At the end, Mrs. Black's voice had turned into a huge roar. Afterwards, no one spoke anymore, and the living room fell into a huge silence, leaving only Creature's screams and cries of punishing himself. Creature, can you tell me what happened to Regulus in the end? Since he left his last instructions, it means that he still has something to worry about. If you haven't done it, you should tell other masters and help Regulus fulfill his wish. Besides, only if you tell us Regulus's last whereabouts, the masters can take him home, right? Kyle's voice was extremely soft, but full of bewitching power. And whether it was Creature or Mrs. Black, they stared at Kyle blankly, as if the pause button was pressed. The sight of the two made Kyle feel a little uncomfortable. To be honest, at this time Kyle already suspected that the master and servant were not very smart. They cared so much about Regulus, but they had never thought of taking him home for so long, regardless of life or death. Take the little master back. Kyle's words made Creature's brain pause. Take the little master back. Yes, Creature wants to take the little master back. Creature wants to take the little master back. The little master is still waiting for Creature to take him home. At the end of the words, Creature was already screaming, his face full of madness. I said, little master please take the little master back. The little master has been outside for too long. He is very timid. He will be scared please. Little master, please. Creature, who had reacted, knelt down beside Kyle and begged him bitterly, calm down, Creature. At least you have to tell us what happened so that we can know what to do, right? I'll tell you everything. Creature wants to take the little master home. Kyle didn't say anything, silently waiting for Creature to confess everything. Stop your disgusting sobbing, Creature. Tell everything you know right now. Mrs. Black had obviously reached her limit of patience and roared to order Creature. The box of the young master Regulus. Creature was wrong. Creature disobeyed his order. Creature did not destroy the box. Creature said as he rushed to the poker standing in front of the fireplace, intending to punish himself with the poker. Mrs. Black, who could no longer bear it, roared again. Creature, I order you not to move. Stop your damn behavior. I want to know what happened to Myrel. Creature lay on the cold stone slab, tears welling up under his loose eyelids. But after all, obedience to orders has been engraved in the blood of the house elf. Creature sat up, curled up into a ball, put his wet face between his knees, and began to rock back and forth. When he spoke, his voice was very suppressed, but it was still very clear in this quiet and empty hall. Master Sirius left, happily free from his family, because he was a bad boy, always disobeying the rules, and breaking the mistress's heart. But the little master was well educated. He knew what the Black family name and his noble pure blood meant. For many years, he has been talking about the Dark Lord, the one who made wizards no longer hide, but instead rule muggles and muggle-borns. At the age of 16, the little master joined the Dark Lord's group. So proud, so happy to serve him. Then one day, a year after joining, the little master came downstairs to the kitchen to see Creature. The little master has always liked Creature. The little master said, he said. The old house elf shook faster. He said the Dark Lord needs a house elf. Voldemort needs an elf. Kyle repeated, his face full of confusion. At this time, the portraits in the hall were crowded with blacks, all listening to Creature's words silently, and were also full of confusion about the Dark Lord's request. Well, yes, Voldemort's name made Creature groan. but he continued. The young master took the initiative to recommend Creature. This is an honor, the young master said, an honor belonging to him and Creature. Creature must do anything the Dark Lord orders, and then go home. Creature shook faster, and his panting turned into sobs. So Creature went to the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord did not tell Creature what to do, but took Creature to a cave by the sea. Deep in the cave is a cave, and in the cave there is a large black lake. On the island in the lake there is a basin full of medicine, potion. Dark. The Dark Lord made Creature drink it. The house elf was trembling from head to toe. Creature drank it, and saw terrible things while drinking it. It felt like Creature's body was burning with fire. Creature cried and shouted for the young master to save him. He cried for Mistress Black, but the Dark Lord just laughed. He made Creature drink all the potion. He put a box in the empty basin. He filled it with more potion. Then the Dark Lord rowed the boat away, leaving Creature alone on the island. Creature needed water, so he slowly crawled to the edge of the island and drank water from the black lake. Many hands, dead hands, stretched out from the water and pulled Creature under the water. But the young master asked Creature to go home. The young master asked Creature to go home. The highest law of the house elves is the order of his master, Creature said in a long voice. The young master asked Creature to go home, so Creature came back. Having said that, Creature no longer had the strength to continue speaking, but just gasped weakly. The hall was silent. Thanks to Weaking, Juan Quinte and Sora for their recommendations. It's not easy to write a new book, the data is poor. Blade shamelessly asks for recommendations and monthly votes. Chapter 39 Ornament Box. Obviously, Voldemort hid something in that cave and sent Creature to test the strength of the protective magic. As for Creature's life or death, how could Voldemort care about it? Obviously, the blacks in the portrait also thought so. What is worthy of Voldemort's attention? To be protected in the wilderness with such strict magic? Horcrux? Is it a Horcrux? Kyle and a certain ancestor made a judgment at the same time, but Mrs. Black was unmoved and continued to urge the elf. Go on, Creature. I just want to know what my little Rel has experienced. At this time, Mrs. Black's eyes were already red and her voice was trembling. Creature's description made her shudder. She dared not imagine what her young son would experience. In fact, Kyle had already made his own judgment at this time. Regulus was most likely killed by Voldemort. For the already crazy Voldemort, who cares whether you are the heir of a 1,000-year-old noble family? In order to keep the secret of his leaping death, he can obviously do anything. What happened after you came back? Orion Black walked into Mrs. Black's portrait and asked anxiously. What did Lee say when you told him what happened? The young master was worried, very worried, Creature said hoarsely. The young master told Creature to stay in the house and not go out. Then, after a while, one night, the young master went to his cupboard to find Creature. Creature could see that the young master was strange, different from usual, and his mind seemed confused. He asked Creature to take him to the cave that Creature had been to with the Dark Lord. Kyle could clearly imagine the frightened old house elf and the thin and dark Regulus who once looked so much like Sirius. Creature knew how to hit the hidden entrance of the cave and how to summon a boat. This time it was his beloved young master who rowed him to the island where the stone basin filled with poison was. He asked you to drink the poison? Kyle asked. But Creature shook his head and cried. Mrs. Black quickly covered her mouth, as if she understood something. The little master took out a box similar to the Dark Lord's from his pocket. Creature's tears flowed down both sides of his big nose. He told Creature to take it with him, and once the stone basin was empty, to replace the box. Creature's sobs turned into sharp cries now. Kyle had to concentrate to hear his words clearly. He also ordered Creature to leave. He also told Creature to go home, not to tell the mistress what he had done, and to destroy the first box. He drank all the poison. Creature changed the box and watched the young master being dragged under the water. Creature. Mrs. Black screamed in grief. How dare you? How dare you let little Rachel replace you? How dare you still live in this world? I will tear you into pieces. I will cut you into pieces. Voldemort. I will tear you into pieces. I will cut you into pieces. Mrs. Black, who was crying loudly, was already talking without thinking. Her hatred for Voldemort and Kreacher's anger almost drove her crazy. Kyle suspected that if Voldemort appeared in front of her at this time, Mrs. Black would unhesitatingly use the last resources of the Black family to drag Voldemort to death together. Don't doubt the foundation of the thousand-year-old nobles. The family that was established by overcoming difficulties in that barbaric era definitely has the courage to drag the enemy to death, and must have left similar means as the last insurance for the family. Mrs. Black, who was extremely sad and angry, gasped. Orion Black covered his face with one hand and clenched his fist with the other hand, and he was also unable to hide his pain. To be honest, Kyle did not expect Regulus's choice at all. The dark and cold-blooded Black family actually raised such a kind heir. He was not killed by the Dark Lord, but chose to die generously. What about the box? You said you didn't do what Regulus ordered. It seems that you failed to destroy the box. Black asked Kyle in the basement. Kyle had already learned that this man, also called Sirius Black, was the great-grandfather of Sirius and Regulus. No matter what Kreacher did, he couldn't leave any marks on it, the elf moaned. Kreacher tried everything he knew, but nothing worked. There were too many powerful spells cast on the box. Kreacher was sure the way to destroy it was to break it from the inside, but he couldn't open it. Kreacher punished himself. He tried to open it again. He punished himself, tried to open it again. Kreacher failed to carry out the order. Kreacher couldn't destroy the box. And the mistress was heartbroken and mad because Master Regulus was gone. Kreacher couldn't tell her what happened in the cave. Couldn't. Master Regulus forbade him to tell anyone in the family anything that happened in the cave. Kreacher cried so hard that his words were incoherent. The box is in Kreacher's cupboard. Kreacher tries to destroy it every day and punishes himself every day after failing. Every day. Bring the box here, Mrs. Black said coldly, ignoring Kreacher's trembling tears. Kreacher cried bitterly while apparating and disappeared in front of everyone. Just 1 minute later, Kreacher reappeared, holding the box that had cost Regulus's life. It was a heavy golden locket, and the light flashed a gorgeous snake-shaped S, charming but dangerous. Kyle's heart was in turmoil at this moment. The moment the locket appeared, he had confirmed that it must be Voldemort's Horcrux, which made him overturn his guess about the plot again. All kinds of known information rolled in Kyle's mind, and they were fragmented and could not form a line, so Kyle could not connect them into a line anyway. It seems that I, a time traveler, don't have to think about using the prophet to get any benefits, because I don't know anything. Kyle, who was slapped in the face by reality several times, could only think like this self-deprecatingly. Thank you for the monthly ticket of the Windsword and the Windrider. It's not easy to write a new book, the data is poor, Blade is shameless to ask for recommendation and monthly ticket. Chapter 40 Speculating with Blake. The ornament box in Kreacher's hand was extremely gorgeous. Without any magic detection, Kyle could see that it was protected by countless spells, and these spells were obviously extremely evil. What a gorgeous treasure. It seems that this is the legendary ornament box of the Gaunt family. I just don't know how Voldemort got it. Sirius said. Kyle, you can try to identify what kind of magic is on it. I can teach you some practical spells. But at this time, Kyle's heart was in turmoil, and he didn't hear Sirius' words at all. The moment the ornament box appeared, he had already felt the strong soul fluctuations on the box, which also made him sure that this was Voldemort's Horcrux. He once deduced that Voldemort had 7 Horcruxes, namely the Philosopher's Stone, the Goblet of Fire, the Resurrection Stone, the Elder Wand, the Invisibility Cloak, the snake named the Chronicles of Narnia, and the relic given to him by his parents in Potter's hand. But now the ornament box is obviously not within this range. In fact, this speculation was overturned when Kyle saw Harry wearing the invisibility cloak, because he had secretly detected it at that time, and there was no soul fluctuation on the invisibility cloak, which ruled out the possibility that the invisibility cloak was a Horcrux. Now the appearance of the ornament box just fills the gap of the invisibility cloak, but Kyle no longer dares to believe his own inference. Since one part is wrong, are the other inferences still correct? The Chronicles of Narnia and the relics on Potter's body should be correct. These are the Horcruxes that his roommate in his previous life clearly told him. It is said that these two Horcruxes are the most special. Now add a known ornament box, and there are still 4 unknowns. It can be ruled out that the ornament box appeared in the 6th part. Regulus's experience can be described as a prodigal son returning, and a lone hero. It will definitely be written about in the novel, and become the main character. It is even possible that the main plot of the whole book is that the protagonist group chases the clues left by Regulus and finally finds the Horcrux. If you think in this way, the title of the book Half-Blood Prince is definitely not in line with Regulus's situation. There is no problem in calling Regulus a prince. After all, he is the heir of a 1000-year-old noble family, but the Half-Blood Prince can never be called Regulus. The prisoner of Azkaban is not impossible. Maybe in the future, Harry Potter and the other two will come into contact with a prisoner who has been released from Azkaban, and then from the perspective of the prisoner, they will learn about the Death Eaters deep in Azkaban, which will trigger the storyline of Regulus. The book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is also not impossible, because the cave described by Creature is obviously an enclosed space, and it seems reasonable to call it the Chamber of Secrets. In addition, since the ornament box was made into a Horcrux, were the other 3 relics of the founder of Hogwarts also made into Horcruxes? If you think in this way, in addition to Slytherin's pendant box, the Chronicles of Narnia and the relics in Potter's hand, Gryffindor's sword, Ravenclaw's diadem, Hufflepuff's golden cup, the Philosopher's Stone, the Goblet of Fire, the Elder Wand and the Resurrection Stone, these 7 things may be Voldemort's Horcruxes. The messy guesses gave Kyle a headache, and he regretted that he didn't read Harry Potter carefully before he traveled through time, because he disliked it as a fairy tale. After all, in Kyle's eyes, fairy tales are basically equivalent to the king of stories. Just think about it, and you will know that they must be written in a very childish way. But the experience of this life told Kyle that the magic world is not childish at all. Kyle, what are you thinking about? Sirius's shouting brought Kyle back to his senses. The blacks around him looked at him with inquiring eyes and seemed to be a little wary. Kyle, what were you thinking about just now? You were staring at the ornament box for a while. Nothing, Sirius, I just thought of something from the past. Things from the past, Kyle. Creature, go get the stone statue on the left side of the 2nd row on the first shelf in the storage room. After hearing Kyle's words, all the blacks fell silent. After a secret eye contact, Sirius spoke softly but firmly. The blacks looked strange, of course, and Kyle noticed it, which made him hold his wand tightly without making a sound. Any questions, Sirius? Sirius did not answer Kyle's question, but asked him back, did you feel something strange just now, Kyle? Staring at Voldemort's things and thinking about them, as far as I know, you have no intersection with Slytherin's relics. What feeling? Kyle somewhat understood what the blacks meant. They were obviously afraid that he would be affected by Voldemort's magic on the ornament box. At this time, Creature had already returned to the hall with the stone statue. This turned out to be a stone statue of Slytherin, and it was obviously very old, with scratches all over it, and even some of the carved beards had been broken off. Our first generation ancestor was once a student of Lord Slytherin. This stone statue was a small toy made by Lord Slytherin at that time. But even after 1000 years, the effect is still amazing. This stone statue can detect the fluctuations of memory magic and soul magic. Kyle, I need you to use the stone statue to detect whether memory magic has been released, or whether it is controlled by certain magic. The future descendants of Black cannot be affected or controlled by Voldemort. Don't worry, this stone statue will not touch your memory. It will only detect your state and detect whether you are controlled or your memory is read or modified from the remaining magic fluctuations in your body. Kyle had already understood the concerns of the blacks at this time. In order to appease them, he simply accepted the detection of the stone statue generously and said, what I think is indeed related to the pendant box, but it is not about the past of the pendant box. Since Voldemort made Slytherin's pendant box into a Horcrux, will he start with the inheritance of other founders? As Kyle spoke, bursts of white light flashed on the stone statue, and the blacks relaxed. Interesting reasoning, Kyle. The sword of Gryffindor is kept in the hands of successive headmasters of Hogwarts, regardless of which house the headmaster came from. Phineas, is the sword still in Dumbledore's hands? I haven't heard of the rumor that Gryffindor's treasure is lost. Phineas looked grim, and was obviously also affected by Regulus's affairs. Of course, the suspicion of the sword can be ruled out. I'm very sure that the sword is still in Dumbledore's hands. Phineas' words made Kyle relax a little, eliminating a wrong option, at least clearing up the mess in his mind a little bit. One person's plan is short, two people's plan is long, which further strengthened Kyle's idea of guiding the Blacks to discuss the plot with him. Chapter 41. Continuing to speculate with the Blakes. Ravenclaw's diadem has been missing for 1,000 years, and no one knows where Helena hid it, but I remember seeing Voldemort chatting with Helena, and it seemed that he was also tempted by the diadem. Phineas' words made Sirius thoughtful. Is that so? Then the suspicion of the diadem cannot be ruled out. And the Hufflepuff's gold cup. I remember that the Smith family has always kept the gold cup. And do you remember the rumor? It is said that Hepzibah of the Smith family was killed by her own elf, and 2 treasures were lost. It seems that Voldemort is also related to this matter. Elves again. It seems that this Voldemort likes elves very much. The Blacks said sarcastically. It seems that the diadem and the gold cup may have fallen into Voldemort's hands. Sirius concluded. Then what about the Deathly Hallows? The Deathly Hallows and the relics of the founders are both legendary items. Will Voldemort also collect them as his own Horcruxes? Kyle tried to guide the Blacks and asked his own question. It's hard to say, Kyle. After all, there are many legendary items in the magic world. The scepter of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh, Merlin's wand, and even the legendary spear that killed Jesus, and the staff of Moses that split the Red Sea. Which one is not extremely powerful? Sirius denied Kyle's guess. If we follow this line of thought, there are too many things that may be made into Horcruxes by Voldemort. Kyle, I'm afraid this idea is not worth further investigation. Sirius' words made Kyle shudder. It was just a fairy tale. How come the characters in myths and legends all appeared? Is there really a god in this world? But this doesn't make sense. If there is really a god, judging from the attitude of the church towards wizards, God would have cast a great prophecy to exterminate wizards long ago. God said that wizards should not exist in this world. Doesn't this sentence solve the problem? Is there any need for the church to launch a witch hunt and then be fooled by wizards? Sicily, does Moses really exist? Isn't that a legend? Curiosity made Kyle accidentally go off topic. It's said that it's a legend, Kyle. No one can prove that it's false. Okay Kyle, let's get back to the Horcrux. You're right, Sirius, you shouldn't think about those messy things. Sirius, don't forget about leaping over death. This is Voldemort's dream. Kyle is right, Sirius, we can't ignore leaping over death. A Black whom Kyle didn't know yet stood up. There were too many Black ancestors, and it would take a lot of energy for Kyle to distinguish each of them. That makes sense. As we all know, the Potter family is the descendant of Ignatus among the 3 brothers in the legend, and the invisibility cloak is in Potter's hands. The invisibility cloak can be ruled out. I've seen the invisibility cloak in Potter's hands, and it's not a Horcrux. Kyle interrupted. Okay, let's continue. The resurrection stone has not appeared in the wizarding world for centuries. This thing has only appeared in the legend of the Deathly Hallows, and it even makes people doubt whether it really exists. The Elder Wand will reappear in the wizarding world from time to time, but no one knows whether those who claim to own the Elder Wand are holding the real Elder Wand. After all, the Elder Wand is inherently powerful in enhancing dark magic. Speaking of the Elder Wand, I do know some interesting rumors. It is said that the villains Morick, Egbert, Larxius, Gotlet, Harewood and other famous bad guys have all owned it. This is another Black that Kyle did not know. You know, I have a good relationship with the Grigorovich family. I once heard from the portraits in his family that Grigorovich once got the Elder Wand at the beginning of the century, but unfortunately it was eventually snatched away by Gellert Grindelwald. This is another Black that Kyle did not know. Grigorovich family? That is a wand-making family that has been passed down in Germany for thousands of years. They will not be wrong. In this case, the Elder Wand is in Grindelwald's hands. Kyle was a little dizzy at this time. One unfamiliar Black after another said one name after another that Kyle didn't know. Fortunately, he finally understood that the Elder Wand finally fell into the hands of the old devil who once ruled most of Europe. Unexpectedly, Kyle found that Voldemort, who once ruled the English peninsula with terror, and was also famous in Europe, and conquered many countries, was despised by the blacks. But when talking about the old devil who had never touched England, his tone was full of respect. In Grindelwald's hands? I haven't heard of Voldemort and Grindelwald having a conflict. It seems that the suspicion of the Elder Wand can also be ruled out. Kyle asked. It can be ruled out. You can't imagine the majesty and power of Lord Grindelwald. He is a truly charismatic and convincing leader. If a conflict occurs, the Saints will fight Voldemort to the death. The blacks answered Kyle in unison. It is not difficult to see their admiration for Grindelwald from their words. It's a pity that Lord Grindelwald was defeated by Dumbledore. This is why Dumbledore is called the greatest wizard of this century. Well, Kyle has seen that the blacks, former supporters of Voldemort, are actually Grindelwald's die-hard fans. It is not impossible that Black also donated countless to him when the Saints swept across Europe. In this case, the Elder Wand and the invisibility cloak should not be Horcruxes, and only the Resurrection Stone is missing. This conclusion made Kyle wonder if the Resurrection Stone was not in Voldemort's hands either. The 7th book of the story was named Deathly Hallows because Potter collected the Deathly Hallows and defeated Voldemort. This would overturn part of Kyle's speculation. Before Kyle could continue to say anything, Mrs. Black's roar interrupted Kyle's discussion with a group of portraits. Have you said enough? What we are going to talk about today is to take Rail home. Kyle, you want to make a bet? Then I will tell you the content of the bet. Take Lee home. This is the only requirement. If you can do it, I will give you everything that Black has accumulated for thousands of years. If you can't do it, then you will never inherit Black. I'm the last head of the Black family, and I mean what I say. The crazy Mrs. Black could no longer bear it, and threatened Kyle with gritted teeth. Hearing this, Kyle's face also sank. Since Kyle started his own business in his previous life, no one who threatened Kyle had a good end. Whether it was the business battles between ordinary people in Kyle's previous life, or the little wizards, when he just arrived at Hogwarts in this life, they were all treated badly by him. Mrs. Black, it seems that I don't have to accept your threats. Kyle said slowly, it seems that the person who is anxious for someone to inherit the name of Black is not me. Leaving Black, with my talent, I can still make a name for myself in the magic world. And if Black leaves me, what will be left? Thanks to Waking for the recommendation vote. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Youthful Vigor and Arrogance. Just a conflict of words. Kyle suddenly confronted Mrs. Black. The old woman repeatedly ordered Kyle around, which had exhausted Kyle's patience. Considering that she had just confirmed the death of her youngest son, and was in pain, Kyle secretly tolerated her arrogance several times. Unexpectedly, this seemed to make the old woman even crazier. Was she going to treat Kyle as a poor relative who had never seen the world, or as her own house elf? Call him and send him away at will? In Kyle's eyes, inheriting the Black family is more of a cooperation. Kyle inherited Black's power, status, wealth, and inheritance, and at the same time assumed Black's responsibilities, hatred, and enemies accumulated over thousands of years. Black's wealth inheritance is tempting, but Black's enemies are not vegetarians. At this time, Kyle will not be protected by family elders like the previous Blacks. Once he is targeted by these enemies, he can only rely on himself to fight. How many people who are qualified to be called Black's enemies are good? Good guys have either been reconciled or killed. Unfortunately, Mrs. Black doesn't seem to think so. In the eyes of the old woman, Kyle should feel lucky to inherit the huge Black family. Coupled with her usual arrogance, it is inevitable that she becomes arrogant and condescending when facing Kyle. It is true that blood is thicker than water, but the Black family is not a kind family. The black hole left by Black, who was removed from the family tree for thousands of years, is enough to prove this. Want Black to love and care for him just because he has black blood flowing in his body? I'm afraid he has lost his mind. It seems that Kyle's reaction has completely angered Mrs. Black. The arrogant and crazy old woman is now furious. After Regulus disappeared, Mrs. Black lived in seclusion for more than 10 years, with only Creature as her company. She was already crazy before her death. Today, she was stimulated by the truth about Regulus, and became more and more out of control. Kyle did pity Mrs. Black's experience, but this was not enough for him to tolerate a madman pointing fingers at him. Very good, Kyle. Very good. Do you really think that you have to inherit the Black family? Young man, don't be so angry. Madam, the Black family can indeed choose someone else to inherit, but I will not accomplish nothing without Black. Don't be angry. Don't be angry, young man. Neither Mrs. Black nor Kyle likes to talk nonsense. After expressing their attitudes to each other, the hall fell into silence for a while. Kyle put his hands on his chest and looked at Mrs. Black indifferently. The old woman was also unwilling to be outdone. She sat on the chair in the portrait, holding the armrests tightly, and looked down on Kyle with her head held high. The two did not give in. Okay, Kyle, Wahlberger, let's get back to the topic. I believe we are all interested in this. As for the bet, why bother so much? Unexpectedly, it was Phineas, the old and proud old man, who came out to smooth things over. As if he could see Kyle's confusion, Phineas smiled and explained, boy, if you let Wahlberger take advantage of you like this, then whether you win or lose the bet, you will never get the full support of the Black family. This confused Kyle and reminded him of the black question mark face emoticon. Is there something wrong with the Black family? The more they confront him, the happier he is. It seems that the expression on Kyle's face is too strange. Phineas hurriedly continued to explain, we old guys are not happy that you are against Wahlberger, but because the head of the Black family can be proud, arrogant, insidious and cunning, and can do whatever it takes, but he cannot be cowardly, and cannot obey orders. Especially at this time, Kyle. The Horcrux made Voldemort crazy, but it is undeniable that it made him powerful. One day he will return. What Black needs is a shrewd and not cowardly heir. He can choose to lurk for a while and pretend to surrender to Voldemort for a while, but he must always know his bottom line and always keep his goals in mind. At the end, Phineas was already giving earnest instructions, and Mrs. Black did not interrupt Phineas' words, but sat aside unhappily with her eyes closed and silent. Kyle certainly expressed his gratitude for Phineas's kindness, but Kyle said that he understood what he said. Needless to say, don't forget your original intention and keep your mission in mind. No problem. At this time, Sirius also stood up, as if he had not seen the fuss just now, and his face was still full of kindness, just like an old man facing his cub on the roadside. Unfortunately, Kyle probably couldn't forget the way Sirius calmly introduced himself to seduce others to split their souls for a long time. Kyle, don't mind Wahlberger's attitude. The pain of losing her son has made her stand on the edge of madness, and she urgently needs something to vent her pain. But what Wahlberger said just now is indeed a good suggestion. At the beginning, Real could break Voldemort's trap without any help. Now you have the entire Black standing behind you. Even if you add the condition of bringing Real back, it is not impossible to complete it. Do you want to use this condition as a bet? You will face Voldemort in the end. It will be good for you to understand his methods in advance. Of course, Kyle, the choice is yours. Kyle's expression did not change, and even the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, but the complaints in his heart never stopped. Regulus called that cracking. That's called risking your life to fight back. Have you ever seen a minesweeper who runs forward without caring about anything? Regulus is one of them. After learning the layout of the cave from Creature, he followed the rules of the game left by Voldemort. When an engineer is clearing mines, he first uses a detector to find out the mines, and then removes them. As for Regulus, he bleeds himself when he encounters a blood-sucking magic circle, and drinks the poison when he encounters a difficult situation with poison. It is true that Regulus was too young at that time, and he was isolated and helpless and could not ask for help from anyone. But Kyle really didn't know where Sirius got the confidence to say that he had cracked the system. As for the friendliness between Sirius and Phineas, did they really think Kyle was a 14-year-old kid? Mrs. Black played the good cop, Sirius and Phineas played the bad cop, and in the end Sirius even used a provocation on Kyle. Did he really think Kyle was stupid? Thanks to, and waitings for their recommendations. It's not easy to write a new book, so vote and cherish it. I want recommendation votes, monthly votes, and blades. Chapter 43 Born Noble. Ignoring Sirius and Phineas, Kyle lowered his head and looked at the ornament box on the table. His attitude was self-evident. Kyle was not a fool. Why would a dead person cause such a big reaction from Black? Acting crazy and pitiful, the red-faced and white-faced people singing the same tune, the provocation, and even the helplessness of Sirius and the sadness that were being played out now. If he was an ordinary 14-year-old boy, he would probably have been confused by the set of combined punches and agreed to the Blacks' proposal. Maybe after agreeing, he would recall that the Blacks had surrendered to him, and he would have some guilt of bullying his widowed mother in his complacency. This guilt, coupled with the desire to show off his competitiveness in front of the Blacks, will undoubtedly make the executor pay 120% attention to the matter of taking Regulus back. Such calculations, just to let Regulus rest in peace. Just to let the old lady see her youngest son for the last time. Unless Kyle's heart moved, and an incredible idea rushed into his mind, but he gave up the idea immediately. After all, this was a fact, not a fairy tale. Kyle's attitude was clearly conveyed to the Blacks. If things were not explained clearly, Kyle would not agree. The helpless Blacks looked at each other, and Sirius, Orion, and Mrs. Black also stopped performing. In the end, the Blacks were no match for Kyle's persistence. Kyle, you don't have to be so wary of us. After all, you are the last Black. In order to ensure the inheritance of the Blacks, we must ensure your safety and help you grow until a new Black appears. This is the meaning of the portrait's existence, and it is also the shackles imposed on us by the curse on the old house. When the Black's paternal bloodline dies, the elves and portraits of the old house will gradually weaken until the magic power dissipates. Although creature has become weaker over the years, the portraits have not been affected at all. We have not been able to determine whether this is because Real is still alive somewhere in the world, or because Sirius is still alive. It was not until you showed up that we completely gave up on Real and Sirius. This also means that we must assist you with your last strength. So in fact, the so-called bet is just your unfounded worry. You didn't need to be so wary of us. Phineas gave Kyle a positive response, while also trying to dispel Kyle's long-standing concerns about dominance. Very wonderful explanation, Phineas, but it still can't explain why so many means were used to force me to take Regulus back. Don't underestimate Black's pride, Kyle. Hearing this, Mrs. Black finally couldn't help it, and said to Kyle angrily, from the moment you entered the Black mansion, your every move has been under Black's watch, and every choice you make is a test for Black. If you don't meet the requirements, then Black would rather choose to self-destruct, and will never pass the dominance and the position of the head of the family to a coward or an idiot. And taking back little Lyra is your last test. Success, inherit Black. Fail, you will never see the Black mansion again. Mrs. Black's voice was firm and arrogant. When talking about self-destruction, there was no hesitation or hesitation. I see. Kyle said. That's right. You are testing me, and I'm testing you. If you can't provide me with enough support in this process, why should I inherit a family that is only good in appearance, but full of enemies? That's a good idea, but the accumulation of Black for thousands of years will be beyond your imagination. Mrs. Black had lost her madness and despair at this time, leaving only the shrewdness and arrogance that a 1,000-year-old family head should have. As expected of a noble who has been passed down for thousands of years, I only have one last question. What? Mrs. Black dragged out her voice, sitting arrogantly on the chair, with a hint of fearlessness hidden in her eyes. After I bring Regulus back, how are you going to resurrect him? Kyle's voice was very light, but it was clear enough to be conveyed to every Black. The tone seemed a little understated, but the Blacks in the portraits felt a chill rushing to their heads, and the sound of gasps continued. Sirius opened his mouth in shock, and Mrs. Black was no longer as calm as before. It was not enough to describe her loss of composure at this time. Resurrection? Kyle, how could you have such an idea? Did you have an idea to resurrect Regulus? Orion was so surprised that he even stuttered. Stop acting, everyone. Wasn't your goal from the beginning to the end to resurrect Regulus? In that case, why bother to talk about inheriting black falsely? It would be better to treat this as a business. What do I need to pay, and what can you provide me? It's really a big show, but aren't you tired of performing like this? Why don't we talk frankly, blacks? Kyle found a chair and sat down, stroking his chin with one hand, looking at the blacks with interest. In fact, the blacks' idea of resurrecting Regulus was rejected by Kyle as soon as it came up. Because from Creature's description, it can be clearly seen that Regulus has been dragged into the lake by the Inferi and has become one of them, guarding Voldemort's cave forever. Kyle had never heard of any magic that could bring the Inferi back to life. Even if there were methods in Blake's 1000-year heritage that Kyle didn't know about, that was the Inferi. It was made with the most evil black magic, which made the body decay, filled with black magic, and bound the soul. Maybe it wasn't the most powerful black magic, but it must be on the list of the most evil black magic. The bound soul could clearly feel the gradual decay of its body, and then the whole process of being filled with black magic. The great pain would gradually distort the soul, and allow the chaotic black magic to take advantage of the opportunity. In the end, it formed an evil, corrupt monster. Maybe Blake had the ability to revive the dead body, but the distorted soul was irreversible, which also made the Inferi lose the possibility of being resurrected in theory. But think about what Phineas said just now. We must ensure your safety and help you grow. After all, you are the last black. In order to ensure the inheritance of black, we must ensure your safety and help you grow until a new black appears. This is indeed a statement of the current situation of black. Yes, what bad intentions can a group of portraits have? But the words "the last black" and the appearance of a new black suddenly aroused Kyle's nerves. From the first time he stepped into the Black Mansion to now, when he sat in the hall and confronted the blacks, the scene flashed through Kyle's mind again like a movie. Mrs. Black's capriciousness, the sadness and anger when she first heard the news of her young son, and the guidance of the other blacks to Kyle, either explicitly or implicitly. Looking back, Kyle should have been alert long ago, because Mrs. Black played a mother who lost her beloved son vividly, sad, crazy, angry, and reckless, but lacked the despair of waiting for more than 10 years to hear the bad news. But Kyle's inference was ultimately missing a final argument. Kyle tried his best to think about every scene after entering the Blake mansion. Finally, a word flashed through Kyle's mind like lightning. Born Noble. Thank you for the monthly ticket of the Windsword and the Windrider. It's not easy to write a new book, and vote, and cherish it. I want the recommendation ticket, monthly ticket, and blade. Chapter 44 Born Noble. Born Noble. This word was churning in Kyle's mind. Black, who had been prosperous for 1,000 years, had made the magic world recognize his noble birth. But what made Black so proud of his noble birth? Think about the line at the top of the family tree, the noble and oldest Black family. This was a sentence engraved on the family tree when the Black family was first established. Unlike the nobility, brought by the accumulated wealth and power in the past 1,000 years, why could a newly established family be so sure of its nobility? The oldest Black family was written on the family tree at the beginning of the family's establishment, which only shows that the Black family has been passed down for a long time. But what about nobility? Where does nobility come from? Bloodline. Only the Sansa can explain where Black's original nobility came from, and where Black's confidence came from engraving the words "the noble and oldest Black family" at the top of the family tree. Born Noble. Kyle sighed and said, "What an unexpected answer." Kyle was immersed in his own conjecture, but he did not forget to observe the blacks in the hall. When he said the word resurrection, the surprise of the people in the hall had confirmed his guess about Regulus. When he said he was born noble, the expressions of the blacks were no longer surprised, but as if they had seen a ghost, looking at Kyle with horror. Sirius' mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything in the end. Incredible Kyle, what an incredible performance. Phineas trembled and praised Kyle. I really hope you were raised in the Black family, since you were a child. If so, we will hand Black to you without hesitation. This final arrangement for you is really a waste of your talent, and also delays Black's future. Kyle said everything, and guessed the core of the whole problem directly, and Sirius became calm. After this guy no longer had that kind smile on his face. He seemed real. At this time, Mrs. Black also stopped her performance. The expression on her face was no longer crazy and arrogant, but filled with sadness, joy, and anger. Kyle and the Blacks were silent. Kyle didn't know what the Blacks were thinking, but the current situation was too complicated, so Kyle had to think carefully about how to deal with it in the future. Should he go to the mysterious cave? Can the Blacks still be trusted? What does Kyle need, and what can he give in the next exchange of interests? Kyle, how do you understand the nobleness of the Blacks? Mrs. Black's words interrupted Kyle's thinking. At this time, the old woman's expression was unexpectedly kind. And this question also indirectly answered Kyle's guess. It was because of nobleness. It's the blood, Mrs. Black. You guessed it, Kyle. Black's original nobility comes from the blood. Lord Slytherin always gets the loyalty of snake creatures. The Dumbledore family always gets the help of the Phoenix in times of danger. The Potter family lives significantly longer than others. The Malfoy family always looks charming, regardless of gender. Kyle, the pure blood theory advocated by the nobles does not come from the arrogance of the nobles, nor is it because of the opposition between wizards and muggles in the Middle Ages. It is because there is truly superior magic and talent in the blood of pure blood. This special blood has many sources, and the special blood of our Black family comes from a desperate battle 1,000 years ago. It is said that this was in the early days of the establishment of Hogwarts. Unlike the Forbidden Forest now, where only tamed or harmless magical creatures remain, the Forbidden Forest at that time was a real forbidden area. Basilisks, trolls, ogres, and even the legendary nightmares, dark unicorns, and hellhounds all lived in the Forbidden Forest. In order to drive away these dangerous creatures, the 4 adults who founded the school, with a group of outstanding disciples, had countless battles with them. During a patrol, the ancestor accidentally got separated from Lord Slytherin, and unfortunately encountered a dark unicorn. The young ancestor was pierced in the abdomen by the unicorn, and blood was spilled all over the ground. Just when the ancestor was hanging by a thread, Lord Slytherin arrived. Legend has it that he used the cutting curse to cut off the head of the dark unicorn, and the unicorn's blood spurted out and fell on the ancestor's wound. Blood full of corrosion, darkness and chaos mixed into the ancestor's body. The ancestor, who should have been corroded to death by this terrible blood, miraculously survived and was found to have merged the blood of the dark unicorn. Excellent magic resistance, innate control over black magic and huge magic power have become the symbol of black, and this is why the ancestor ingrained nobleness into the family tree. Mrs. Black's explanation was neither hurried nor slow. This was the first time, since she met Kyle, that she didn't have a crazy or arrogant expression on her face when she spoke. She just spoke slowly and gently, as if she was telling a bedtime story to a cub. To be honest, this made Kyle very uncomfortable, and even got goosebumps under his clothes. Kyle didn't know whether the Black family was really paranoid and crazy, but this group of Blacks were really good at changing their faces. At the same time, Kyle also understood what Mrs. Black wanted to express. So you think the power in the Black bloodline can protect Regulus? Yes, Kyle. Even if the power in the bloodline cannot protect Regulus' body from the corrosion of dark magic, it is enough to help his soul fight against the distortion of dark magic. But it has been so long after all. Sirius. It is unknown how much power is left in the modern Black bloodline. This power can help Regulus resist the erosion of darkness, but this is not a day or two, a year or two, this is a full 14 years. I know everything you said, Kyle. I will not overestimate the ability of the Black bloodline, but you should not underestimate the strength of your own bloodline. Chapter 45 The so-called Forever Pure. I know everything you said, Kyle. I won't overestimate the power of Black's bloodline, but you shouldn't underestimate the power of your own bloodline either. This sentence overturned Kyle's view of pure blood families and legendary creatures. Is the bloodline of a pure blood family really that powerful? Can it help a person survive for more than 10 years in a desperate situation? Is the bloodline of a legendary creature really that powerful? Can it have such power even after 1,000 years? If all the pure blood families in the magic world have such potential, then Kyle really needs to readjust his view of pure blood families. Mrs. Black, I can bring Regulus back for you, and bring back the last hope for the Black family, but what can I get? Voldemort's trap is not difficult to crack. The difficult part is how to face the inferi, how to bring Regulus back among so many inferi. And if it is really as you expected, Regulus is still resisting the curse of becoming an inferi, then maybe he will not appear with the other inferi, but sleep alone at the bottom of the lake. That is to say, in the worst case, I may need to enter the magic circle where Voldemort created the inferi under the threat of the inferi, in order to bring Regulus back. Your guess is not wrong, but there is one thing, it's not a possibility, to go deep into the lake, it's a certainty. Black can provide you with all the support you need, the spells, magic equipment, and potions you need, but in the end you have to face these dangers alone. And what can be provided? I still say the same thing, Kyle. What do you want? Magic books, magic items, extinct magic materials. Black has everything you can think of. I need to think about it, ma'am. This is not an easy decision to make. In the end, Kyle did not agree to the blacks on the spot. This would be a great opportunity, which would allow Kyle to survive the difficult primitive accumulation stage and stand directly on the shoulders of giants to continue exploring the mysteries of magic. But the price is also huge. Just think about how dangerous it would be to go deep into the lake. In addition to the corpses, what other dangers are there in the lake are currently unknown. Is the lake water poisonous? What other dangers are there at the bottom of the lake? Are there any dangerous magical creatures? Are there any magic traps? How many spells have been released in the lake? If Kyle is not careful, not only will he not be able to get the foundation accumulated by the blacks, but he may even lose his life. Kyle did not want to be with Regulus at the bottom of the lake. In the end, Kyle and the blacks dispersed in silence. Perhaps in order to successfully persuade Kyle, Phoenix suddenly asked Kyle from behind before leaving. Kyle, although you have black blood in your body, you are not recognized by the portraits. We would even rather pay a huge price and rush to win back Lear instead of waiting for you to grow up. Aren't you curious why this is? Because I didn't grow up in the black house. Kyle replied. Of course not. Phineas smiled. Blacks are not so superficial. It seems that you only noticed the words of the noble and oldest black family, but ignored another label of black. Forever pure. Sirius and Andromeda have been expelled from the black family, but the family has never held them accountable for the black name they still bear, nor has it held them accountable for some of the things they did in the name of black. Andromeda has indeed cut off all ties with the family since she was expelled, but Sirius has been causing trouble outside. In the end, he escaped punishment because he was once a descendant of black. Even his living expenses have always been paid by the black family. Have you ever thought about why this is the case? Kyle paused when he heard this. Without saying anything, he just waved his hand back and strode out of the black old house. Forever pure? Kyle murmured. Thinking about the black family tree, there are several significant characteristics. First, when a woman marries someone from another family, only the number of offspring is recorded, but no information about the offspring is written. This shows that the paternal line is valued. However, the Malfoy family is not included in this list. The information about the intermarriage with the Malfoys is clearly written in the family tree. This also shows that the Malfoy family is different in Black's eyes. Second, for those who are expelled from the family, all information in the family tree will be removed, leaving only a small burnt hole in the place of the name. Third, when the family names their offspring, they like to use constellations to name them. Sirius, Vega, and any constellation name you can imagine can be found in the black family tree. In addition, the words the noble and oldest black family and the family emblem above the family tree are the most conspicuous. The main body of the black family emblem is a shield decorated with a mountain symbol, 2 5-pointed stars and a dagger. On both sides of the shield are 2 leaping greyhounds. Under the shield is a ribbon with the family motto written in French, always pure. The family crest is described in heraldic terms as black, with a mountain between 2 stars as the main body, and a sword as a base, made of silver. At this moment, Kyle suddenly realized that, since the noble and most ancient black family at the top of the family tree has been proven to be true, then what does the eternal purity recorded in the family crest represent? Forever pure. Does it mean that the blacks of the future generations must always keep their blood pure, not intermarry with muggles, and not intermarry with wizards of low blood? But nobility is the highest evaluation of their blood by the blacks, and it is also the source of their pride. In this case, do they need to emphasize it again in the family emblem? Even if it is emphasized, it should be forever noble, not forever pure. What exactly does forever pure mean? If it is not emphasizing blood, then what can it be? While thinking, Kyle strolled on the streets of London. Puzzled, he finally found a hotel at random, packed up hastily and fell asleep. The next morning, the biological clock cultivated in Hogwarts woke Kyle up. In the early 1990s, although the life pressure in London was also very high, the pace of life was not as fast as in later generations. It was not until the popularization of telephones, and then the popularization of various means of communication such as text messages and WeChat, that the fast-paced urban life of later generations was born. The newsboy on a bicycle slung a cloth bag full of newspapers across his shoulder, whizzed past Kyle, and made an emergency stop at the door of number 11 Grimmauld Place next door. Then he simply tidied his clothes and knocked on the door. It turned out that Kyle had returned to Grimmauld Place again inadvertently. "Sir, the newspaper you ordered." It was Mr. Weaking who opened the door and walked out. Obviously, the holiday had disrupted Mr. Weaking's biological clock. At this time, he was wearing a burgundy pajamas, with fluffy hair and a little sleepy eyes. It was obvious that he had just climbed out of bed not long ago. After taking the newspaper from the newsboy and paying the bill, Mr. Weaking, who seemed to be still not very sober, finally saw Kyle, waved to him happily and said, "Good morning, Mr. Kyle. Are you so impatient to urge me to work so early?" While teasing Kyle, Mr. Weaking let him into the house. Thanks to Weaking, Yi Shen Leng Yuan, and Shuiao 20200416141026432 for their recommendation votes. Chapter 46 The so-called Forever Pure. After a while, the two sat in the living room of Mr. Weaking's house, drinking the coffee that Mr. Weaking ground by hand. The two chatted about everything. Compared with the last time they met, the two seemed to be much more familiar with each other. Mr. Weaking was a talkative person and always dominated the topic of the chat. In addition, his words were humorous and soon eliminated the last trace of strangeness between the two, and the topics of the chat became more and more extensive. Suddenly, Kyle thought that an outsider in the business could provide him with a different idea. "Mr. Weaking, I suddenly thought of an interesting question. It seems difficult to come up with an ideal answer using my inherent way of thinking, but the collision of two people's thinking may lead to different results." "Kyle, what's the problem? You were thinking about this question when we just met. You had a frown on your face when we just met." "Haha, yes, it's the content of my classmate's family emblem that is bothering us." "Your classmate? The classmate who joined the magic club with you? You guys have a wide range of hobbies. Why are you studying heraldry again? Speaking of which, this seems to be a unique product of your Western world. The East doesn't pay much attention to this aspect." Yes. Mr. Weaking, that's my classmate in the magic club." Mr. Weaking is always so considerate. Kyle doesn't even need to explain the reason. He can come up with an explanation for Kyle. "It's my classmate's family emblem, and the family motto is written in French on it. Just per this classmate's family has been passed down for a long time, and even his own family has no record of the accurate understanding of this sentence, so we friends have different understandings of this sentence." "What does this sentence mean in your opinion?" Kyle described the Black Clan crest to Mr. Weaking, and then waited for Mr. Weaking's reply. "This is an interesting question. You know, Kyle, since there is no original record, all the speculations of later generations will always be just speculations, and this matter will never have a correct result." It's okay, Mr. Weaking. You can make a bold guess. It's not that there is no correct answer, it's just that I don't know the correct answer." Of course, Kyle couldn't say this to Mr. Weaking, and could only apologize to him secretly in his heart. "Kyle, before I say what I think, can I hear your thoughts? My guess is that it may refer to the purity of blood. Maybe the ancestor of my classmate who designed the family emblem hopes that he will not marry a foreigner in the future. Who knows after all, whether this sentence is translated as forever pure or forever pure. It seems to refer to the family bloodline. Interesting idea, but this question really reflects the difference between the East and the West. Kyle, I came to the UK with my parents when I was very young. Here I have come into contact with peddlers, big businessmen who have risen due to emerging industries, and aristocrats with long traditions. Unlike the East, the aristocrats in the West seem to attach great importance to the purity of the so-called aristocratic bloodline. The aristocrats who still have power marry aristocrats, not only because of the matching of their social status, but also to ensure the purity of the so-called bloodline. The royal bloodline of various countries seems to be very popular among people. But it's not like this in the East. Only in the feudal society nearly 100 years ago did the royal family care about the so-called royal bloodline, while the remaining aristocrats and big businessmen would choose a matching of their social status, rather than the so-called bloodline when getting married. After all, Kyle, the ancient country in the East began to use the examination selection method more than 1,000 years ago to open a channel for civilians to leap over the Dragon Gate. As a result, every few years, there will be a few outstanding young people who get tickets to rise to the top. Maybe this is a reason why China has not paid much attention to blood since ancient times. Speaking of blood, perhaps the only thing that people in the ancient Eastern country care about is the Shenshao blood. As for the so-called noble blood, it is not a big deal. So this phrase forever pure may not refer to the purity of blood for Oriental people. Maybe it refers to some spirit, some belief. After all, I don't know much about your classmates' families, but you can try to think about it from this direction. Mr. Weeking's words made Kyle silent. Spirit and belief. Kyle seemed to have some enlightenment in his heart. Forever pure, is it really talking about some spirit, some belief? Think about Finney's words. Think about Andromeda's persistence and loyalty to love. Think about Bellatrix's support and madness for black magic and pure blood theory. Think about everything Narcissa did to protect her family. This seems to prove that the black family is always pure. They all have their own beliefs and persistence, and once they choose, they will never look back, with almost paranoid persistence. This is the eternal purity that black is proud of. Maybe you are right, Mr. Weeking. It seems that this statement can really fit the character of my classmate's family. The noble and oldest black family, forever pure. I seem to understand this family a little bit. Kyle muttered to himself in a trance. What did you say, Kyle? Mr. Weeking asked, while refilling Kyle's coffee without hearing Kyle's mumbling clearly. Nothing, Mr. Weeking. I just suddenly thought of the two heirs of this family. One was willing to die after realizing his beliefs, and the other chose to pursue freedom and justice, but chose to betray his beliefs and best friends in the face of life and death. After the voice fell, Kyle suddenly understood why the portraits of Black were so obsessed with Regulus, but ignored Sirius, who was also a direct paternal bloodline. Oh. It seems that this family has some stories. Did they experience World War I or World War II? Haha, yes, it happened during World War II. It can't be said that Kyle deceived Mr. Weeking. The war against the second Dark Lord of the Wizarding World can be referred to as World War II. After thinking clearly about the answer, Kyle completely relaxed, and at the same time he also understood why Finney said this to him. Remind yourself that you haven't found your own beliefs. Kyle sneered. How can a group of portraits understand your own thoughts? Thanks to Unisora, Weeking, and the Swordmaster of the Wind for your recommendation votes. Chapter 47, Return to School and Cave Strategy. Kyle spent the rest of the Easter holiday in a dull manner. Apart from meeting Mr. Weeking again, and getting back the magic circle template, he spent the rest of the time in his room reading magic books. There was no other way. Kyle, who was not yet an adult, could not use any magic outside of school. His ongoing research was forced to be interrupted. He could only read some interesting books to increase his knowledge. For example, 18 applications of the cutting spell was neither bloody nor violent, and it was very edifying. On the last day, before returning to school, Kyle finally made up his mind and returned to the Black Mansion, agreeing to take Regulus back. After dealing with this matter, Kyle had solved all the problems of the Easter holiday. After wasting another day on the Hogwarts Express, Kyle finally lay on the bed in his dormitory. Hogwarts is still the best. Kyle couldn't help but sigh as he held his wand and cast a few spells recklessly. If possible, Kyle didn't want to step into the Muggle world once before he became an adult. Accustomed to the convenience of magic and the sense of security brought by spells, Kyle, who returned to the Muggle world, Felt like he had walked into the chaotic battlefield of the Middle East without any defense. After all, this was the insufficiency of firepower deep in the bones of the ancient Eastern country, which could not be solved by reincarnation. Moreover, Kyle's relationship with some purebloods was too good. What if these purebloods were too crazy and gave him a warm greeting while he was in the Muggle world? Although it was unlikely to hurt him, it would also bring him a lot of trouble. After a while of random thoughts, Kyle began to think about his agreement with the Black family. Kyle already had a preliminary idea about taking Regulus back. Creature's elf magic could take him directly to the cave, so that he could perfectly bypass the blood-sucking magic circle at the door. And if the situation was not right, Creature could take him away at any time, which also made Kyle invincible. As for entering the bottom of the lake to find Regulus, Kyle certainly did not intend to take risks. First try using the flying spell, summoning spell and other magic to see if Regulus can come out of the lake by himself. If it doesn't work, then it's time for Kyle's puppet to appear. That's right, Kyle is going to be on the sidelines. Facing the inferi, go with the puppet. Enter the lake, go with the puppet. There are dangerous spells and magic circles. Don't be afraid, puppet. This is why Kyle finally agreed. Not only can he harvest the Black family's massive private collection, but he can also provide Kyle's puppet with a chance to fight in actual combat. Why not? What's more, the several magic circles left by Voldemort in the cave also made Kyle unable to stop. Just by listening to Creature's description, he has discovered several magic circles that are either broken or banned by the magic world. There is definitely a no-fly magic circle above the lake. This magic circle is very famous, but it has been lost for a long time. There is also definitely a complete magic ritual for transforming the inferi in the lake. This magic ritual is very evil and has long been banned by the Ministry of Magic. The huge magic world must have this magic ritual preserved in some corner, but it is unknown whether it is still running. And even if it is still running, Kyle needs to look for clues in a large number of travel notes and essays, and then he needs good luck to find it. In this way, Voldemort's cave can actually be regarded as a small treasure house left by this senior for the younger generation. It can level up, there is knowledge inheritance, and there is a treasure left in the middle of the lake. Where can you find such a good senior? And in fact, Kyle is a sure winner in this business. Why? What if Kyle's idea fails? The alchemical puppet is restrained and cannot be remotely operated. Isn't there Dumbledore? Do you know how to find the police when you encounter difficulties? Do you know how to find the teacher when you encounter difficulties? If you really can't solve it, just report it. Of course, this is the last resort. It must be done after Kyle has studied the Horcrux, the magic circle of the cave, and the magic ritual. Kyle, who has done a good business, happily accepted the magic theory accumulated by the Patronus dog during his absence, and then began to design the alchemical puppets to be used in the cave. Kyle's current plan is to design several more models. Anyway, Blake will pay for the materials. First, to protect itself, Kyle plans to design a small mobile fortress with a cockpit. The bottom of the fortress is flat and equipped with spikes, which can be inserted into the ground to help the fortress fix its body shape when necessary. Next to it is a structure similar to spider legs for movement. The upper part is a dome. If possible, Kyle even wants to connect a suspension gun or suspension cannon to this puppet. This puppet can ensure Kyle's safety on the edge of the cave. Although the transformation ritual of the inferi is evil, the danger of the inferi itself is not high for Kyle. Quick action, infinite strength, can move as long as the head is not smashed. Kyle said it doesn't matter. He sat in the fortress puppet and watched from the edge. No matter how strong or fast you are, it's useless if you can't touch Kyle. Kyle designed the fortress puppet to have a huge dead weight, and it can use the spikes below to fix its body shape. This effectively prevented Kyle from being pushed into the lake by the inferi when he was sitting in the puppet. At the same time, the puppet was made taller, and the position of the upper cockpit was designed to be around Stulark, which could effectively prevent the inferi from stacking up like a human wall on the puppet and affecting his vision of watching the show from the edge. If necessary, there are spider legs, right? Stand up, shake, and then sit down, and you will have another good position with a wide field of view. As for the combat puppet, since this time he was mainly facing the siege of Inferi, and there was number 100% guarantee that Regulus's body was not among the besieging Inferi, Kyle did not intend to invest too much energy. He just planned to make a cutting puppet with both arms, replaced by cutting machines. After it was released, it only needed to rotate and jump to perform the height adjustment method to ensure that the height of the nearby corpses would all be less than 1 meter. His main energy was placed on the puppet for underwater exploration. This puppet must be strong enough to withstand the huge power of the corpses and the water pressure in the lake. After all, this cave is on the seashore. What if the lake water goes directly to the bottom of the sea, and Regulus's body is lying on the bottom of the sea? If the pressure resistance is not enough, won't Regulus have to watch the seawater squeeze the puppet? I don't know if Kyle will be depressed at that time, but Regulus must be depressed to death. In addition, it must have good magic resistance. Because the situation in the water is complicated, no one knows how much magic Voldemort has left in it. If you encounter a magic trap set by Voldemort after entering the water, it will be embarrassing if the puppet leaks water after a spell, so sufficient magic resistance is essential. But good magic resistance itself will repel magic power, so how to do remote control is another problem. In addition, this puppet must have good flexibility, strong attack capabilities, and sufficient endurance. After all, strong magic resistance is not only strong externally, but also strong internally. This eliminates the possibility of Kyle placing an energy storage core inside the puppet to allow it to absorb energy while moving. It can only be built in with a core with sufficient energy to provide energy for its actions. To sum up briefly, this exploration puppet must have strong maneuverability, strong defense capabilities, strong attack capabilities, and strong endurance. Well, very good. Kyle said that, if he could make it, he would be called an alchemy puppet master. What's the point of reading a book in Hogwarts? Chapter 48 Attitude Change in Trial. Kyle smacked his lips and thought that maybe he had overcomplicated the problem. Maybe exploring the lake was not as difficult as he thought. Kyle could only comfort himself in this way. After thinking about it, Kyle decided to put the production of the fortress puppet on the agenda first. The requirements for this puppet are extremely simple. It only needs to provide strong protection and sufficient self-weight. Kyle has the relevant technical reserves, and it will not take a lot of time to make it. After putting the fortress puppet into the cave, Kyle has an absolutely safe space in the cave. It will become his front position in the cave, allowing him to attack or defend. In the next month and a half, Kyle put all his energy into the production of the puppet fortress. The refining of the main body requires drawing a large number of magic circles. The main purpose of the magic circle is to control the gravity of the puppet. After all, such a heavy puppet consumes more energy to move than the energy supply limit of the energy core designed by Kyle. Then there are the spider legs for movement. There are no higher requirements for this part. As long as it is strong and flexible enough, it can be used as a weapon when necessary. In addition, there are control systems, external image transmission systems, etc. But these are similar to those used on the toy puppets before, and do not require much improvement. During the month that Kyle was in seclusion, the protagonists seemed to have some adventures again, but Hermione, who returned to Hogwarts, remembered the difference between her and Kyle's colleges again, and her communication with him was obviously less. Even if Hermione is mature, she is just an 11-year-old girl. She can't ignore other people's eyes, do what she wants to do, and choose the friends she wants to associate with. But think about it, even among adults, how many can do it? Kyle did not take Hermione's alienation to heart. On the contrary, the little witch has been full of contradictions. Every time she sees Kyle, she looks like she wants to say something but stops. Maybe Gryffindor is really not good at hiding his expression. After seeing Kyle several times and writing a lot of entanglement on his face, almost all Slytherin knew that Miss Know-It-All from Gryffindor seemed to have some story with Kyle that had to be told. And this abnormality even attracted the attention of Professor Snape. Just when Kyle finally finished making the fortress puppet and could sit in the lounge to listen to the latest news, a little wizard stumbled to Kyle. Kyle had some impression of this little guy. He seemed to be a little follower of Malfoy. "Sir, what's the matter?" Senior Shafiq The little wizard swallowed his saliva very obviously. "The dean asked me to inform you." He said. What, sir? Please don't be nervous. Can you tell me your name?" "Goyle. Gregory Goyle, sir. The dean asked me to inform you to find him in his office." After the little wizard finished speaking, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He hastily saluted Kyle, and without waiting for Kyle to reply, he ran to Draco Malfoy. Obviously, Goyle's performance made Malfoy very dissatisfied. The platinum-haired little guy was mumbling at this time, looking at Goyle with disgust, which made Goyle even more nervous. He didn't know whether he should sit down or stand aside. He looked at Malfoy at a loss, with a dazed look. Ignoring the fuss of Malfoy and others, Kyle got up and walked towards the dean's office, while wondering in his heart why the dean suddenly looked for him. After thinking about it, Kyle has been obsessed with refining puppets recently and can't extricate himself, and he hasn't caused any trouble for the dean. Kyle, who didn't figure it out, simply stopped making random guesses, calmed down, and knocked on the door of Professor Snape's office. "Darn, come in." The professor's tone still carried the familiar coldness that Kyle was familiar with. Although it was already mid-May, the cellar still seemed damp and cold. A pile of parchment was piled on the large desk, and the professor was correcting homework for students before Kyle came in. This obviously made the professor's mood even worse, and he had no intention of greeting Kyle at all. "Sit down, Mr. Shafiq." "Good evening, Professor. Mr. Goyle told me that you have something to talk to me about." "Yes, Mr. Shafiq. I believe we both don't want to waste each other's time. I noticed that you seem to have some special stories with Miss Know-It-All from Gryffindor recently, so that she behaves very differently every time she sees you. Why, Mr. Shafiq, have you also learned to abandon your lover like your aristocratic classmates?" The professor's words made Kyle's expression a little strange. Not to mention that nothing happened between Kyle and Granger. Even if it did, when did Professor Snape become concerned about the emotional life of his students? The professor's abnormality made Kyle suspicious, and he immediately decided to test it. "Dear Professor Snape, I don't know when I have gained such attention from the professor that you can even know the little abnormalities of the people around me. Or are you not paying attention to me, but the people around the savior?" Kyle replied to Snape in a teasing tone. "Mr. Shafiq, I have to remind you that I'm not free enough to pay attention to a student's emotional problems. It's just that Miss Know-It-All's abnormality is too obvious, and I don't want you to cause me any trouble because of a Gryffindor." "Of course, Professor, I know very well what I'm doing. It's just that I happened to meet Miss Granger during the holidays and had some contact." Kyle, who didn't want to cause trouble, revealed the reason to Snape. Snape didn't reply to Kyle after hearing this, and the cellar fell into silence for a while. "Well, Professor, if there is nothing else, I will go back to the lounge first." In the end, it was Kyle who broke the silence and took the initiative to say goodbye to Snape. After staring at Kyle for a long time, Snape finally said, "I hope the facts are as you said, Mr. Shafiq. You have enough troubles." Snape paused and then said, "Don't run into trouble again." "Of course, Professor." After standing up and bowing to the professor, Kyle turned and left the cellar. What an interesting conversation. While walking to the lounge, Kyle recalled the conversation just now. "It seems that Professor Snape didn't notice Granger's abnormality because of me. It seems that he cares about the savior and the people around the savior." Kyle originally thought that he was already very familiar with his own dean, but the conversation just now made him realize that his understanding of the dean might only be the tip of the iceberg. "I wonder what the relationship is between the dean and the savior, so that when Granger just showed a little bit of strangeness, he couldn't wait to warn me to stay away from Hermione. Is he afraid that I will get acquainted with Potter through Hermione?" Snape's attitude today is very intriguing. Kyle feels that he seems to be able to dig up a few things that the dean and the savior have to say thanks to Weaking and Hansi Cheyenne for their recommendation votes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Shocking News. Kyle returned to the lounge, listening to the young wizards exchanging various information, while thinking about the three Potters. People in the Muggle world believe that 20% of the world's people hold 80% of the world's wealth. Most of the young wizards and Slytherin come from noble families in the magic world, and are in the ranks of that 20%. It is no exaggeration to say that 40% to 50% of the magic world's industry is in the hands of Slytherin. The remaining part is in the hands of Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw and Gryffindor. This also led to the Slytherin lounge always hearing information that is difficult for the outside world to access. For example, in order to increase profits, Slytherins deliberately controlled the output of some potions this year, creating a magical version of the hunger effect. For example, two families that monopolize the manufacture of crucibles actually upgraded the manufacturing process of crucibles 10 years ago. However, in order to clear the inventory and earn more profits, the new manufacturing technology was only used in some high-end models. It was not until now that the inventory was almost cleared that it was decided to popularize better technology and apply it to all crucibles. There are countless similar messages. Information that is considered commercial secrets and strictly kept confidential in the outside world may only be a topic of entertainment in the Slytherin lounge. If Kyle is still short of money like when he first entered school, he can rely on the information he heard in the lounge to make a comparison. For example, he can configure some potions with controlled production to sell. For example, he can stock up on some herbs that are said to have reduced production this year. Another example is that Kyle just heard someone whispering that Mrs. So-and-so had an affair. Well, this is garbage information that he heard accidentally. It can't make money. It can't make money. Kyle warned himself. In short, the Slytherin lounge is great. While the little wizards in the lounge were chatting about all kinds of gossip, Kyle began to think about Potter and the others. He couldn't believe what he heard from Malfoy. This year, the school not only has a three-headed dog puppy, but also a baby dragon. Kyle made a special confirmation that it was the kind of baby dragon with wings and a big belly that could spit fire, not a pet dog called a baby dragon. Kyle, who just heard the news, simply thought Malfoy was joking with him. A baby dragon raised on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. If no one is watching, this baby dragon can burn the entire Forbidden Forest clean. And this is just an appetizer. The more terrifying news is still to come. Hogwarts, which is known as the safest, has indeed been broken into by a dark wizard, and it turned out to be a dark wizard who sucked unicorn blood unscrupulously. Unicorn blood will only have various magical functions unless it is donated voluntarily. But who would be willing to be stabbed for no reason? Therefore, voluntarily donated unicorn blood is extremely rare in the magic world, and every ounce can be sold at a sky-high price. The blood that is injured and shed like this contains a terrible curse. Because killing a unicorn is an extremely cruel thing. Only those who have nothing, want everything, and are strong enough will slaughter unicorns. Unicorn blood can prolong life, even if the person is dying. But those who drink it must pay a heavy price for it. From the moment the cursed blood touches the lips, the drinker will have a half-dead life, a cursed life. What does this mean? This means that a reckless, unscrupulous, and powerful dark wizard who has nothing to lose has broken into Hogwarts, and he may be lurking somewhere in the Forbidden Forest, watching this school. And Kyle knows more. Who else would need unicorn blood, except a dark wizard who has nothing, and doesn't care about anything? It's Voldemort without a doubt. Because he is already in a state of neither death nor life, how could he care about the curse of the unicorn? In addition to this news, Kyle also noticed that, although the school discovered this, it did not take any action. No additional teachers were sent to patrol, no comprehensive search of the Forbidden Forest, and even no strengthening of the management of the Forbidden Forest, and blocking the Forbidden Forest. What does this mean? Either the school doesn't care, or the school has already grasped the identity and whereabouts of this dark wizard. No matter which guess, Kyle shuddered. Is this another part of Dumbledore's plan? Is this the confidence of the first white wizard of this century? Letting an extremely dangerous dark wizard lurk in the school. What kind of strength does it take to be so confident that this dark wizard will not harm the little wizards? It's not that Kyle stands on the standpoint of Slytherin and naturally blackens Dumbledore, but Kyle finds that Dumbledore is really completely different from the image that the outside world has rumored. This great headmaster does not seem to be a great and glorious saint who is devoted to teaching in the school and even refuses the position of Minister of Magic for this. Instead, he seems to be not so concerned about the safety of students, but only cares about his own plans. Kyle couldn't find a suitable adjective for a while. It seems a bit too much to describe Dumbledore like this, but there is no doubt that this word can explain some of Dumbledore's behavior and personality. The little snakes in Slytherin are very smart. Since everyone heard the news from Malfoy, Kyle obviously found that the little snakes went out less. Most of the students lived a life of classroom, auditorium, and lounge, and occasionally went to the library to check information. There is no doubt that these clever little guys also found that something was wrong this year. One of Kyle's goals in school this year was to grasp the progress of the story through Potter's behavior and then verify it with the plot he speculated. But I didn't expect that Hogwarts this year was so dangerous that it actually attracted Voldemort, who was suspected to have not been resurrected. This made Kyle have to be more cautious. He was just an ordinary 4th grade student, and he didn't want to run into Voldemort committing a crime without paying attention. I think Voldemort wouldn't care whether he was a Slytherin student when he was silencing him. Now he can only hope that Hermione will return to normal after leaving school and reveal the content of their adventure this year to Kyle. Otherwise, I'm afraid Kyle can only find a way to exchange some information from his dean, or go to Harry, the little guy, to get information. Speaking of it, the little red hair seems to be a big mouth. Isn't it easier to get information from him? After thinking about this, Kyle found that he seemed to have to get in touch with the protagonist group. Should he contact Potter or talk to the little witch? Thanks to Yuno and Jihuan for their recommendation votes. Chapter 50 Encounter. Time passed quickly, and Kyle's fortress puppet was completely formed. After numerous tests to confirm that the reliability was no problem, Kyle and Creature agreed that on the afternoon of the last final exam, the two would meet in Hogsmeade Village and go to the cave where Voldemort hid the Horcrux. On the one hand, Kyle's fortress puppet was placed in it, and Kyle also had to conduct a field investigation. After all his knowledge of the cave came from Creature's description, and he could only rest assured after a field investigation. In addition, this time he would also try the flying spell and summoning ritual, although the possibility of success was relatively small. But what if it succeeded? Kyle would not have to worry about the problem of the exploratory puppet. Kyle still had a yearning for a better life. In the last week before the exam, all the students became anxious. Kyle had seen more than one conflict caused by playing and affecting others' review, which made the atmosphere of the whole school more impetuous. But this was not without benefits. At least the pressure of the exam made the tangled little witch temporarily unable to pay attention to the embarrassment when facing Kyle. Spells, potions, herbs, until the last course, History of Magic. Kyle was relieved when he walked out of the examination room. Although his grades were very good, he had to review the textbooks for the final exam. After all, he had put too much energy into other things this semester. After sitting in the lounge for a while at noon, Kyle returned to the dormitory to pack the things needed for the first cave exploration. I have to bring potions. After all, we are off campus. I don't need magic if I can. After the fortress puppet is installed, I will rely on this guy to open up a base for me. Bring the flying broom. I still need to verify the power of the no-fly magic circle. And bring these puppet toys. I can throw them into the lake as cannon fodder, which is just right for me to explore the mechanism of the corpse. Muttering to himself, Kyle put all the things he thought were useful into the suitcase that had been cast with the traceless expansion spell, changed into clothes that were convenient for action, and then walked out of the dormitory. The appointment with Creature was to meet at Hogsmeade at 3 PM, but it would take quite some time to walk through the secret passage, so Kyle set off an hour earlier. Hey, Kyle, where are you going? Professor Snape called me and asked me to go to the 3rd floor. Are you going to play Quidditch? Yeah, we'll be back soon, and we'll be at the stadium soon. The last Quidditch game will be in a few days. Slytherin will win. Slytherin will win. Victory belongs to Slytherin. Seeing that Kyle was obviously dressed for going out, his classmates asked casually, not caring what he answered, and a group of people ran to the stadium happily. Finally, the exam was over. How could they not indulge themselves? Kyle, who got rid of his classmates, carried his suitcase, and walked slowly towards the third floor. The secret passage leading to Hogsmeade that Kyle knew was just opposite the restricted area on the third floor. Kyle walked slowly, but it was a pity that some people like to run forward with their heads down. That's right, I'm talking about Gryffindor. Potter, who obviously didn't look at the road, didn't slow down when turning, and bumped into Kyle, who was slowing down and going straight at the intersection. Potter was fully responsible, and no points were deducted. Fortunately, Kyle was not driving fast, and he unloaded the force backwards, so neither of them was injured. At this time, Little Red Hair and Hermione also followed from behind. Harry, how are you? Senior Kyle, are you okay? The two asked at the same time, but the objects of concern were different. Little Red Hair almost jumped up when he heard Hermione's words. You actually care about this Slytherin? Seeing the expression on Little Red Hair's face at this time, as if he was looking at a traitor, Kyle really wanted to add a sentence to him. It was you who led the devil here? This expression is absolutely on point. Potter also slowed down at this time, looked at Hermione strangely, and then said to Kyle, Senior Kyle, I'm sorry to bump into you. I was in a hurry. The Philosopher's Stone. Senior, I'm sorry. I'll apologize to you later. I have important things to do now. Hearing Potter's words, Little Red Hair and Hermione also reacted. Hermione hurriedly said sorry to Kyle, and Little Red Hair looked at Kyle threateningly and ran after Potter. Kyle didn't take Potter and his friend's behavior to heart. This school year, the three protagonists were always in a hurry, and they raised young dragons and patrolled the Forbidden Forest. There were always many important things, but Little Red Hair's eyes made Kyle speechless. What is this threat? Kyle didn't take it to heart, but Potter ran 2 steps and stopped again, turned around and looked at Kyle hesitantly. Little Red Hair couldn't dodge and didn't stop, and bumped into Potter. Okay. It seems that bumping into people in the corridor is a traditional performance of Gryffindor. The bump that Potter just made was really nothing. Harry, why did you stop? We have to hurry over, otherwise he will succeed. The red-haired boy looked at Harry in confusion and asked hurriedly. He was only halfway through his speech when he jumped over vaguely and looked at Kyle with a vigilant face. Kyle, who didn't want to make himself look boring, didn't watch the small drama of several people and walked past Harry. Senior Kyle, please wait. Kyle was not interested in what they were doing, but he didn't expect Harry to take the initiative to call him. What's the matter, Harry? Harry, why does he call you Harry? Hearing Kyle's words, Potter hadn't answered yet, and the little red-haired boy started to yell. This is Christmas. Let's talk about it later, Ron. Senior Kyle, where are you going? You are dressed like this. Are you going to exercise? Hearing Harry's words, Hermione and the little red-haired boy also notice Kyle's dress. Wearing clothes that are obviously suitable for exercise, and carrying a suspicious suitcase, and thinking about the direction Kyle is heading, the two of them also became suspicious. Ignoring the red-haired boy's stereotyped remarks, Kyle, although surprised by their reactions, still replied, maybe I will exercise a little, so I'm wearing this outfit. I'm going to the corridor on the 3rd floor. 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 Before Kyle finished speaking, the three little brats repeated his words in unison. This surprised Kyle very much. What's wrong with these guys? Yes, the corridor on the 3rd floor, but it's not the restricted area. Restricted area. Restricted area. Restricted area. Did these three little guys take the wrong medicine? In order to deal with these three little guys, Kyle had to repeat the lie he just told to the little snakes. It's not a restricted area, it's Professor Snape. Professor Snape? Old bat? Old bat? Sure enough, the three little guys really took the wrong medicine. But Kyle was extremely dissatisfied with Harry and the little red hair's address to Professor Snape. This made Kyle put on the fake smile that Slytherin usually used and said, "Two gentlemen, you seem to lack enough respect for my dean. I think you seem to change the way you address him. You evil Slytherin. You are really the old bat's helper. What's in your box? Is it something you need to steal the Philosopher's Stone later? Steal the Philosopher's Stone. Ron. It was Kyle's turn to ask back, and Hermione and Harry heard what the little red hair said, and hurriedly stopped him, but not because of the disrespect for Kyle in the words, but because they blamed him for leaking the secret. Steal the Philosopher's Stone. Professor Snape? Kyle, who completely understood what was going on, had a headache. He didn't expect that in the last few days of school, he would run into the last adventure of the protagonist group in the first storybook. It makes sense when you think about it. The first school year is about to end. If the storybook in the previous life was based on school years, with one adventure story per school year, wouldn't the final ending be these few days? But think about the information revealed by the little red-haired boy. The final villain of the first part is actually the Dean. This is beyond Kyle's expectations. But the Dean's condition doesn't look like he has drunk the cursed blood of the unicorn. Could it be that the Dean has a collaborator? Or did the Dean lead Voldemort here? Not to mention sorting out these messy information in his mind. The scene in front of him also gave Kyle a headache. He had already taken the initiative to avoid the protagonist group, so why did he still run into the protagonist's adventure story? Thinking about the strength of his own Dean, and then thinking about the suspected collaborator of Voldemort, Kyle said that he was just a baby, didn't want to know these, and didn't want to follow the protagonist group to die. But Kyle seemed to be unable to escape from the vortex easily, because the three little wizards had taken out their wands and pointed them at him. Although the threat from the three little guys could be ignored, Kyle was seriously considering whether he should just pretend to be defeated by Harry. It wouldn't be shameful to be defeated by the savior. It shouldn't be shameful, Kyle thought uncertainly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.